The women in my family are all born highly fertile. My mother keeps giving birth. My father works himself to the bone but still can't support such a large family. I started working for a wealthy household as soon as I came of age to help with expenses. My mother just gave birth again today. I was in a rush to ask for leave to go home. The head governess turned on me immediately. She pointed at me and scolded, "You had twins just last year, and another one this year. Are the women in your family only good for breeding?" The other servants around us all snickered, watching me squirm in embarrassment. Just then, an elderly woman radiating nobility emerged from the inner chamber. It was the most esteemed matriarch of the prince's estate. She asked calmly, "How many brothers and sisters do you have?" I hung my head. 12. Our women conceive at the slightest touch. The old lady's eyes lit up instantly. She made the decision on the spot to have me marry her grandson, the heir. "I will provide for all your siblings. Spend as much gold and jewelry as you like. From now on, you won't have to lift a finger. Just focus on carrying on my grandson's lineage." The governess, who had just been scolding me, dropped to her knees with a thud. Her face had gone deathly pale. I stood there, completely stunned. This unimaginable stroke of fortune had actually fallen onto me. My mother gave birth again. By the time the news reached the prince's estate, I was kneeling on the floor scrubbing the stone tiles. The messenger was a young maid from the next courtyard. She came running, completely out of breath. She leaned into my ear and whispered, "A'Gui, your mother has given birth. It's another girl. Your father wants you to hurry home for a visit. They can't handle things on their own." The rag slipped from my hand, dropping into the bucket. Again, this time last year, my mother had just given birth to twins, and another one this year. My father works as a porter at the docks. He earns 2 taels of silver a month. There are already 13 children in the family, including this one who just arrived. I am the eldest. I am 16 this year. I've been working outside since I was 8, doing laundry, sewing, scrubbing. I've done it all. Last year, through a personal connection, I landed a job as a menial maid at the Yongyi Marquis Mansion. I earn 800 coins a month, and I send every penny home. But now I have to ask for leave. I stood up, wiped my hands on my apron, and headed toward the main courtyard. The head housekeeper, Mother Joe, was the right-hand woman to the Marchioness. She always looked at us menial maids, with her nose turned up in the air. I stood before her and made my request. Mother Joe was drinking tea. When she heard me, she slammed her teacup onto the table. "Leave." She looked me up and down, her gaze as if looking at something filthy. "How many times did you take leave last year? And the year before? Are the women in your family sows?" 1 litter a year. The other older women nearby burst into laughter. My face burned. I kept my head down, not daring to make a sound. She had twins just last year, and giving birth again this year. Tell me, do you people have any shame at all? So poor yet still popping out kids. Can you even afford to raise them? Just counting on them to work and chip in, I suppose. Do you think you're some kind of noble lady? Asking for leave every other day. Do you still want to do this work or not? The laughter grew louder. Samoni whispered, "She's just fertile, that is all. I hear the women in her family get pregnant just by a touch. That's a real blessing, I suppose." Blessing? What blessing? Giving birth to a litter of beggars to be someone's beasts of burden. My fingernails dug into my palms, but I couldn't look up. I couldn't talk back. This job was hard won. If I lost it, what would the dozen mouths at home eat? I gritted my teeth and waited for Mother Joe to finish her rant. But she wasn't done yet. "Let me tell you something. I'm not granting this leave today. If you dare to leave, don't bother coming back tomorrow." My heart sank to the very bottom. "Matron, I beg of you." "Beg for what? I've seen plenty of your kind, taking your wages from the manor. Yet your minds are filled only with your own pathetic troubles. What does your mother giving birth have to do with me? I'm not the one who made her pregnant. If she is capable, she shouldn't have gotten pregnant. Don't expect others to be understanding once you've had a child." My eyes stung. I bit my lip to keep the tears from falling. Just then, the door curtain was pushed aside. "What is all the arguing about?" The voice wasn't loud, but it carried an indescribable sense of authority. Everyone knelt down in unison. I hesitated for a moment, then knelt down as well. From the corner of my eye, I caught a glimpse of shoes embroidered with golden silk patterns passing in front of me. Matron Joe knelt on the floor, her voice trembling with panic. "This old servant has disturbed the matriarch. It is this girl who is being unruly. I was just in the middle of disciplining her." The matriarch, the most noble person in the Marquis Yongyi's estate, the mother of the old marquis, and a first-rank lady officially honored by the emperor himself. Why would she be in this remote courtyard? I dared not look up. I only saw those shoes stop in front of me. "Which courtyard are you from?" I prostrated myself on the ground, replying to the matriarch, "This servant works in the general cleaning crew." "What is your name? Get up and speak." I stood up, but kept my head lowered. "I heard you arguing just now. Speak, what is the matter?" Matron Zhou cut in eagerly. Matriarch, this girl asks for leave every other day. I was merely reprimanding her for it. Did I ask you? Matron Zhou's face turned pale. She shut her mouth, and I took a deep breath. I began to speak. My lady, my mother has given birth again today. My family is truly overwhelmed with work. I would like to request a day off to go see her. The old matriarch's tone was somewhat playful. Bless you. How old is your mother? She has had another one. How old is your mother? If it pleases the old matriarch, she is 34 this year, and how many has she had? I lowered my gaze, including this one. 13. The surroundings fell silent for a moment. 13, the old matriarch repeated, before suddenly asking, are the women in your family all like this? My heart skipped a beat. Yes, I said, my voice dropping even lower. The women in my family are naturally fertile, and we don't have issues conceiving. She did not speak. I couldn't help but look up for a brief moment. Just from that one look, I saw that the old matriarch's eyes were glowing. It was a very strange light, as if she were looking at some rare, priceless treasure. She looked me up and down, from head to toe, making me feel completely uneasy. After a long pause, she asked, are you married? I was stunned. No, not yet. Are you betrothed to anyone? No. The old matriarch suddenly smiled. She turned her head to look at the nursemaid following beside her. That nursemaid also looked pleasantly surprised. The two exchanged a glance. Then she turned back and said to me, come with me. Nurse Zhou was kneeling on the ground, her face deathly pale. I followed the old matriarch outside in a daze. As we walked out of the courtyard, I could faintly hear Nurse Zhou's voice behind us. My lady, that girl. That girl is just a menial servant. No one paid her any mind. I followed the old matriarch through one courtyard after another, and finally entered a warm chamber. Incense was burning inside, and every piece of furniture was so valuable I dared not look too closely. The old matriarch sat down in the main seat, and motioned for me to stand. What is your name? And your surname, Agaya? My surname is Shen A'Gui. She nodded. Biao Fu, you mentioned just now that the women in your family are blessed with unusual fertility. Is that true? I nodded. It is true. How many years has your mother been married? She has had 13. My parents have been married for 17 years, except for the first 2 years when she didn't conceive. She has been pregnant almost every year since. My mother has a very strong constitution. She can be up and about right after giving birth, and she has plenty of milk. She has never had a single empty confinement month. The matriarch's eyes lit up even more. And you? She asked. You are 16. Have you begun your monthly cycles yet? My face flushed red with embarrassment, but I dared not refuse to answer. Have you? Are they regular? Regular. Every third day of the month. Like clockwork. The matriarch suddenly stood up. She paced the room twice, then stopped. She stopped and looked at me again. That gaze was as if she were looking at a mountain of gold. Good, 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 she repeated 3 times. Then she slapped the table. Shen A'Gui, I have a great fortune to bestow upon you. Do you want it? I was stunned. What great fortune? The matriarch walked back in front of me. She said, enunciating every word, my grandson, the heir to the Duke of Yongyi's Mansion, is 19 this year and not yet married. I want you to marry him and become the heir's consort. My mind went blank with a sudden roar. An heir's consort, me? Ah, but I'm just a menial servant girl. You must be joking, matriarch. My voice was trembling. How could a person like me ever be worthy of the heir? Whether you are worthy or not is for me to decide. Do you think I chose you at random? Your family's constitution is something one could look for with a lantern and never find. My grandson is the sole heir to the manor. I have waited so many years for a great-grandson. Those noble-born ladies are all far too delicate. If they don't conceive within 3 or 5 years, my grandson cannot simply sit and wait. He stepped closer, looking into my eyes. You are different. You can conceive as soon as you enter this house. You can conceive year after year. My lord Yongyi's manor can afford it. I can afford to raise as many children as you bear. I will also provide for your younger siblings. I'll bring them into the manor, feeding, clothing, and schooling them. Gold, silver, and jewels will be yours to spend. Silks and satins will be yours to wear. You won't have to do a single thing. Only carry on the Wang family line. I stood there, stunned. A fortune from the heavens had just fallen upon me. How? The old matriarch smiled. I was terrified. I opened my mouth, but could not speak. Suddenly, there was a commotion outside. Someone was shouting, young master, you cannot go in. The old matriarch has a guest. The door curtain was abruptly pulled aside. A young man burst into the room, dressed in black brocade robes, with a jade crown pinning his hair. He was remarkably handsome, so handsome that I dared not look at him for long. He swept his gaze over me, a cold look, as if looking at a piece of furniture. Then he turned to the old matriarch, his brow furrowing. Grandmother, I heard that you picked picked up a maid in the backyard to be my wife. The incense in the warm chamber suddenly turned stifling. I stood there, not knowing where to put my hands or feet. The young master's gaze fell back upon me, lingering for a fleeting moment longer this time, his brow furrowing even tighter. Given his tone, it was as if he were asking this. My face burned hot. I hung my head even lower. The matriarch, however, was not annoyed. She smiled and beckoned me over. You've come at the perfect time. Come here and sit. The heir didn't move, standing at the doorway, his entire demeanor radiating a cold indifference. Grandmother, please don't be absurd. My marriage is for my parents to decide. What is the meaning of you picking someone up from the streets like this? Picking someone up, the matriarch laughed aloud. I have lived for so many years. When have I ever done anything without a reason? Just sit down and listen to what your grandmother has to say. The heir did not sit. He looked at me, his gaze as cold as water from a winter well. You leave. He was speaking to me. I felt as though I'd been granted a pardon and hurried toward the exit. But after only 2 steps, the matriarch spoke up. Stop right there. I had no choice but to stop. A Yongyi, what is this attitude? The matriarch's voice deepened. She is my person. You think you can just order her around? The heir took a deep breath, suppressing his irritation, and walked over to sit in a chair. Though his back remained ramrod straight, he wouldn't even look at me. Grandmother, speak your mind. The matriarch signaled for me to stand beside him. I walked over, trembling, and stood still. I caught the faint scent of sandalwood from the matriarch. Yan, the matriarch began, you are 19 this year. You don't even have a single concubine in your quarters. Matchmakers have worn down our threshold, yet you haven't taken an interest in any of them. Tell me, how much longer do you intend to drag this out? The heir's expression didn't change. Grandson is dedicated to his official career and has no heart for romance. Bollocks, the matriarch retorted bluntly. Do you take me for one of those easily fooled old women? Do you think I don't know what you're thinking? You simply despise those noble-born ladies for being too delicate. You think they can't lift a finger to help and physically incapable of anything. You think they're only good for reciting poetry and not for managing a household, but you haven't given it any thought. You are the heir, the future master of this noble house. If you don't marry a woman from a noble family, are you planning to marry a village girl instead? The heir didn't say a word. The matriarch changed her tone. But today, I really am going to have you marry a village girl. The heir looked up abruptly. Grandmother, let me finish. The matriarch pointed at me. This girl's surname is Shen. There are 16 people in her family. Her mother gave birth to 13 children. The women in her family are naturally fertile. They conceive at the slightest touch. Do you understand what that means? The heir was stunned. He looked at me. That gaze finally changed. It was no longer disdain. Instead, it was a strange, searching look. The matriarch continued. Your father took 3 wives and concubines, but only produced you. Your mother had a difficult labor with you and almost lost her life. She couldn't have any more children after that. Your uncle's household is even worse. 5 years after marriage, not a single child has been born. Blessings. Our Marquis of Yongyi's household has only had 1 heir per generation, and you are our only hope. Her voice sank. Yan. Have you ever considered, what if the wife you marry cannot conceive for 3 or 5 years? What will happen to our noble house? And what will happen to you? The heir's Adam's apple bobbed. I am not forcing you. The matriarch softened her tone. But just think. Those noble ladies, delicate and pampered, have such weak constitutions. 8 out of 10 suffer in childbirth. Even if they do conceive, whether they survive birth or not is another matter. But this girl is different. Her mother gave birth to 13 children. Every single one of them lived. And her mother never suffered any lasting health issues. What does that tell you? It means their family's women are naturally built for childbearing. He patted my hand. If you marry her, you'll have 2 children in 3 years, and another one in 5. In 10 years' time, our Marquis estate will be full of life. Those noble daughters, no matter how refined, can they bear you children? The heir did not speak. He looked at me, his expression unreadable. He seemed to be weighing something. I felt uncomfortable under his gaze, lowering my eyes to stare at my own shoes. After a long pause, he spoke. Does her constitution guarantee a son? My heart tightened. The matriarch laughed. Who could ever guarantee that? But think about it. Her mother had 13 children, 6 sons, 7 daughters. The gender ratio is even if the first few are girls. So what? Girls are still of the Marquis' bloodline. They will provide helpful alliances later on. Besides, with her constitution, having 8 or 10 children would be no trouble. There will be a son eventually. The heir was silent for a long time, so long that I thought he would storm out. But in the end, he only said, Grandmother, since you have decided, I have nothing more to say. The matriarch beamed with joy. That is my good grandson. She turned to command her maid, go and fetch Nanny Joe. Nanny Joe arrived shortly. She knelt on the ground, her body trembling like a leaf. The matriarch picked up her teacup, taking a slow, deliberate sip. Only then did she speak, back there in the courtyard. "I heard you cursing. What was it you said? Repeat it for me." Nurse Joe's face turned ashen. This old servant was blind. I had eyes but failed to see. Have mercy, matriarch. Failed to see. The matriarch smiled. "I, however, think your eyes are quite sharp. You called her family's women sows and said she was only good for breeding. Was that you who said that?" Nurse Joe kowtowed frantically. "This old servant deserves to die." The matriarch set down her teacup. Her voice was flat. "You truly do deserve to die. My grandson's future consort, the future mistress of the Marquis's estate. Is that someone you are fit to curse?" The sound of Nurse Joe's kowtowing stopped. She lifted her head, looking at me with a face full of disbelief. I was stunned as well. The matriarch meant every word she said. "Summon and come," the matriarch commanded. "Drag her out and give her 20 lashes. Exile her to the rural estate, and never use her again." Nurse Joe began to shriek. "Have mercy, matriarch." Two matrons entered and dragged Nurse Joe away. Her screams grew distant, until they could no longer be heard. The warm chamber fell silent. The matriarch looked at me and smiled gently. "What is it? Did I frighten you?" I regained my senses and quickly knelt down. "This servant thanks the matriarch for upholding justice. Rise." The matriarch helped me up with her own hands. "From now on, you are my granddaughter-in-law. There is no need to call yourself a servant. Samoan, take Miss Shen to wash and change her clothes." I was surrounded by a few maids and led out of the chamber. Even after walking quite a distance, I still felt as if I were dreaming. An hour ago, I was still scrubbing the bluestone floor, unable to lift my head after being berated by Nurse Joe. An hour later, I am to be the heir's consort. The place for me to bathe and change was in a side room. Several maids worked quickly and efficiently, stripping off my coarse cloth garments and pressing me into a wooden tub. As the hot water rose above my shoulders, I felt a sudden shiver run through me. The maid scrubbing my back said with a tone of envy, "Miss, you have a lovely frame. Your skin is so fair and fine. With a little care, you'll surely be more beautiful than those young ladies." I said nothing. When my mother gave birth to me, she had no breast milk, and I grew up on thin rice porridge. I started working at the age of 8, exposed to the wind and the sun. My hands were covered in calluses. Someone like me compared to those high-born ladies. But when I stepped out of the bath, dressed in the fine clothes they had prepared, and stood before the bronze mirror, I was stunned. "Is that really me in the mirror?" The maid smiled and praised me. "You are truly a beauty, miss." I stared at myself in the mirror and suddenly thought of my mother. My mother was beautiful in her youth too, but over the years bearing children had completely worn her down. Her waist had grown as thick as a barrel, and her face was covered in dark spots. Will I become like that one day? The maid called out, "Miss." I returned to my senses and pushed that thought aside. Why think of such things? Being able to marry into the prince's mansion is my greatest stroke of fortune. My mother gave birth to 13 children and suffered through poverty all her life. No matter how many children I bear, they will be the prince's heirs, and my children will be young lords and ladies of the mansion. Why should I reject such fortune? Someone spoke from outside the door. "Miss Shen, the matriarch requests your presence. She says the heir wants to see you." My heart began to race again. The heir wants to see me. I followed the messenger toward the main courtyard. The maids and matrons along the way all froze when they saw me, then hurried to bow. This feeling is very strange. An hour ago, I would have had to bow and take a detour just to see them. I entered the main courtyard. The matriarch was speaking with the heir. When she saw me enter, the matriarch's eyes lit up. "My, once you're dressed up like this, you really are quite a beauty." The heir looked over too. His gaze rested on my face for a moment, then drifted away. I couldn't tell if he was satisfied or not. "Yan, take A'Gui for a walk in the garden and have a chat. This marriage was decided in a hurry, and it is a blessing, so you two should get to know each other." The heir stood up. He walked toward me. He stopped right in front of me. Being this close, I realized that he was at least a head taller than me. I had to tilt my head back to look at him. "Let's go," he said. His tone was flat. I couldn't discern any joy or anger. I followed him outside. We passed through the veranda and entered the garden. Dusk was falling. Lanterns had been lit in the garden. The shadows were flickering, and it was beautiful. The heir walked in front, and I followed behind. Neither of us said a word. After walking for a while, he suddenly stopped. I stopped too. He turned around and looked at me. "Do you know why my grandmother chose you?" My heart tightened. I lowered my gaze. "I do. As long as you know." His voice was indifferent. "I don't like you, and you don't need to like me. You are entering this estate to bear my children, and to carry on the family line. As long as you behave yourself, I will ensure you a life of luxury." I looked up at him. He was looking at me, too. His gaze was cold and distant, as if examining a useful tool. I suddenly thought of my mother. When my mother married my father, was that how my father looked at her too? Why? He raised an eyebrow. Do you have something to say? I opened my mouth, just about to speak, when a commotion suddenly broke out in the distance. Someone came running over. Looking flustered, Your Highness, this is bad. People from the palace have arrived. They bring an order for you to enter the palace immediately. The prince frowned. He glanced at me, tossed out a go back first, and strode away. I stood where I was, watching his back vanish into the night. The light from the lanterns flickered, stretching his shadow long. I stood for a while, and was just about to turn away, when a hand suddenly landed on my shoulder. So you're the woman grandmother picked for Brother Yan. I turned around. A young woman in fine robes stood behind me, with almond eyes and rosy cheeks. She was extraordinarily beautiful, but as those eyes watched me, it was as if they were laced with poison. I am a cousin from the Marquise's household. She smiled, a smile that carried a blade. I grew up with Brother Yan. Childhood sweethearts, inseparable since we were young. Do you know what that means? She leaned toward me, her voice dropping low, smiling as she added, It means, even if you cross this threshold, you're nothing more than a toy for bearing children. Her breath washed over my face, carrying a sickly sweet scent of face powder. I took a step back. I stepped back to create some distance. Cousin, I said, looking at him. What is the meaning of this? He laughed, his frame trembling with mirth. The meaning I just came to see. What kind of person it is that the matriarch herself insisted on snatching up. And now that I've seen you, he looked me up and down, his smile filled with contempt. You're nothing special, are you? I remained silent. He took a step forward, pressing even closer. Do you even know who I am? My mother is a daughter of the Marquise's house, and my father is an official at the Jiangnian Bureau. I grew up in the Marquise's manor, always by Brother Yan's side. The matriarch favors me, and the lady of the house favors me too. Had my father not returned home for his mourning period, I would have been betrothed to Brother Yan long ago. A sharp glint flashed in his eyes, as if he wanted to tear me to shreds. What are you anyway? Just a lowly servant girl, and you think you can compete with me? I still said nothing. He waited for a moment, and seeing that I didn't take the bait, the smile on his face began to falter. Are you deaf? Can't you understand human speech? Only then did I speak. I understand. I understand perfectly, and you still dare to stand there. Why wouldn't I? I looked him in the eye. Cousin, I've heard everything you just said. You like Brother Yan, and you wanted to marry him, but the problem is you didn't succeed. Your father went home for his mourning period, and you went with him. That was the end of that. Now that I'm here, you're clearly upset, so you've come to pick a fight with me. His face turned beet red. But have you ever thought... I interrupted him. Why are you picking a fight with me? The marriage was arranged by the matriarch. The person was chosen by the matriarch. If you're really that capable, go speak to the matriarch, ask her to call off the engagement, and let you take my place. What is the point of coming after me? I'm not the one who makes the decisions. He was left speechless, choked by my words. I looked at him, feeling a sudden sense of amusement. I've been working since I was 8 years old. There is no one I haven't dealt with. There is nothing I haven't heard. Those who cursed me or trampled on me. There have been plenty of people who bullied me. His little tricks, compared to those of Nanny Joe, weren't even worth mentioning. Cousin, I said, if you have nothing else, I'll be heading back. The matriarch is still waiting for my report. I turned and walked away. Stop, he shouted from behind. I ignored him. He chased after me and grabbed my arm. You think you've won? Keep dreaming. Brother Yan will never like you. He will marry me sooner or later. Just you wait and see. I shook off his hand and walked away without looking back. Even after I had walked quite far, I could still hear him shouting behind me. I smiled to myself and didn't take it to heart. But when I returned to the matriarch's place, I found the atmosphere was off. The matriarch sat in the place of honor, her expression dark and solemn. Beside her stood a middle-aged woman, dressed elegantly, with a shrewd look on her face. She was dabbing the corner of her eye with a handkerchief, appearing as if she were weeping. The woman said, Matriarch, it is not my place to speak. But if word of this gets out, how are we to hold our heads high? The heir marrying a common servant girl. What would the other noble houses say of us? So it was the Marchioness, the heir's own mother. I stood at the doorway, not sure whether to enter or to retreat. The matriarch saw me, her expression softening. Come in. I walked inside and bowed to the matriarch, then bowed to the Marchioness. The Marchioness looked at me with eyes identical to the heir's, faintly detached and distant, as if looking at an object. Is this her? She asked. The matriarch nodded. It is her. The Marchioness sized me up from head to toe, her gaze finally settling on my hands from years of labor. We're rough-knuckled and covered in calluses. She frowned. She said, Matriarch. This girl's background is far too lowly. Even if you want to find someone fertile for the heir, you cannot just pick someone off the street. If this gets out, how will the heir face society? The matriarch lifted her teacup and did not respond. The Marquioness continued, I have an idea. Don't we have servants born within the estate? We have several born into the household. We could pick a few healthy ones to be the heir's concubines. Any children they bear could be recorded under the legal wife's name. It would be the same. The matriarch set her teacup down on the table with a thud. The same. Her voice turned cold. Are the legitimate and the illegitimate ever the same? The Marquioness's expression shifted. The matriarch looked at me. Come here. I walked over and stood before her. The matriarch took my hand, her own hands perfectly manicured, smooth and delicate as jade, a stark contrast to my own. Yet, she didn't mind at all. Holding my hand, she turned to the Marquioness. Look at these hands. The matriarch said, these are hands that have worked. Among all the pampered young ladies in this estate, who else has hands like these? The Marquioness remained silent. Let me ask you this. The matriarch continued. Among the servants born into this house, whose mother has given birth to 13 children, whose mother gave birth year after year, with every single one surviving birth? The Marquioness still didn't say a word. The matriarch let go of my hand and gave a cold laugh. You're just annoyed by her low status, aren't you? But I'm telling you, status can be elevated, and titles can be rectified, but heirs cannot be manufactured, nor can they be elevated into existence. Our noble house has had only one heir for 3 generations, and a Yan is the only one we have left. If he marries someone who cannot conceive, our noble line will come to an end. At that point, what good will our reputation be? What good will our noble status be? The Marchioness's face turned pale. Mother, that is a harsh thing to say. Harsh? The matriarch cut her off. You think it is harsh? You've been married for 15 years and only gave birth to a Yan. Your health is poor. You cannot bear more children. And I have never said a word about it. But a Yan is different. He is our only hope. He must have many children. Don't you understand these basic truths? Tears welled up in the Marquioness's eyes instantly. She grabbed her handkerchief, covered her face, and ran out of the room. The parlor fell quiet. The matriarch sighed. Leaning back into her chair, looking weary, I stood where I was, not knowing what to say. After a long silence, the matriarch spoke. I've let you see something embarrassing. I shook my head, and the matriarch looked at me. Her gaze was complex. Are you thinking that I am too cruel for pressuring my daughter-in-law like this? I hesitated for a moment and nodded. The matriarch smiled, a bitter smile on her face. Do you think I want this? She said, but I have no choice. The Yongyi Marquis estate has only had one heir per generation, and a Yan is the only one left. His father's generation still had 2 brothers, but the eldest couldn't have children, so the second one did. Now in a Yan's generation, he is the only one. Do you know what this means? I shook my head. The matriarch looked at me, her voice dropping low. It means if anything were to happen to a Yan, our manor's lineage would end. There would be no one to inherit the title, no one to carry on the ancestral rights. An old woman like me would have no face to meet our ancestors in the afterlife. Her eyes grew red. A pang of sympathy filled my heart. The matriarch wiped the corners of her eyes and smiled again. So, I must find him a wife who can bear children. No matter how good those aristocratic daughters are, what use is it if they can't bear a son? You are different. Your mother was fertile, and so are you. Once you enter the family, with 2 children in 3 years, and 5 in 5 years, our manor will finally be lively again. She looked at me, her eyes full of anticipation. A'Gui, you won't disappoint me. Will you? I looked at her, a sudden complex feeling surging in my heart. She is sincerely kind to me. I knew that, but she is only kind to me because I am capable of bearing children. If it were someone else who could give birth, she would be just as kind to them. I am nothing but a tool. But then again, isn't everyone in this world a tool? I work at the Marquis's estate as a tool to earn money. I married into the prince's residence as a tool to bear children. Fine, a tool is what I am. At least this tool lets me eat and stay warm, and provides a way for my siblings to survive. I knelt down and bowed to the old master. I said, rest assured, old master, I will certainly bear them well. Many, many children. The old master smiled and reached out to help me up. Good child. That night, I didn't return to the servants' quarters. The old master had someone tidy up a side room for me to stay in. The bedding was freshly changed, so soft that I didn't dare move once I lay down, for fear of flattening it. I lay in bed, staring blankly at the top of the canopy. Too much had happened too quickly today. too fast for me to digest. Nanny Joe's scolding, the old master's gaze, the young master's coldness, the cousin's threat, the Marquis's tears. Scene after scene swirled in my mind, finally settling on the young master's words. I don't like you, and you needn't like me either. I turned over and buried my face in the pillow. If he doesn't like me, so be it. In any case, I didn't marry into this house for him to like me. The next morning, Samoan came from the palace. The person delivering the decree was a eunuch, accompanied by a pair of guards, who marched straight through the Marquis's gates. At that moment, I was in the old master's room, serving him breakfast. The old master is advanced in years, and his teeth aren't what they used to be, so he eats soft, mushy porridge. I stood to the side, serving his side dishes, when an announcement suddenly came from outside, and then the eunuch barged right in. An imperial decree is here. The matriarch's expression changed, and she hurried to kneel with me. The eunuch unfolded the scroll and began to read it in a shrill voice. I could barely understand a word of it, only catching phrases like Wang Yan, heir to the Marquis of Yongyi, loyal and brave, is hereby appointed as. When he finished reading, the matriarch was stunned. I was stunned as well. The heir had been appointed as a third-rank commissioner of Yunhui, and concurrently served as a commander of the Imperial Guards. He had entered the very heart of the power structure. This reward was far too generous. The matriarch regained her composure and quickly ordered someone to bring a tip for the eunuch. The eunuch accepted it with a smile, and as he left, he said the matriarch was truly blessed. The heir performed a great service before the throne, and His Majesty is greatly pleased. Hence this extraordinary promotion. From here on, the Marquis's estate will reach even greater heights. Once the eunuch had gone, the matriarch sat back down in her chair and didn't speak for a long while. I didn't dare make a sound either. A long time passed before the matriarch finally spoke. A'Gui, do you know what this means? I shook my head. The matriarch looked at me, her eyes filled with complicated emotions. It means Yan's future is now secure. It means that from now on, matchmakers will be trampling our threshold. It means, she paused and didn't finish the sentence, but I understood. It meant I was no longer good enough for him. Before, he was just an heir, and although noble, it was merely a title without real power. Now he holds actual authority, a third-rank official leading the Imperial Guards. He is a true power broker. For a man like that, to marry a lowly serving girl would be beneath him. I lowered my eyes. I didn't say anything, and the matriarch remained silent for a moment. Suddenly, she said, the wedding must be held quickly. Before those matchmakers come knocking, we must finalize the engagement. She stood up and called out for someone to invite the young lord over. The young lord arrived shortly after. He was wearing his court robes, which made him look even more imposing. He brought a gust of wind in with him as he entered. The matriarch gestured for him to sit and got straight to the point. The wedding is set for 3 days from now. Go and prepare. The young lord was taken aback. So soon? It has to be. The matriarch replied, you are now in command of the Imperial Guard. There are so many people keeping an eye on you. Before the news spreads too far, let's get the wedding over with. To avoid any complications, the young lord furrowed his brows. He shot me a glance. His expression was indifferent, just the same as it was yesterday. Whatever you decide, grandmother, he said, and the matriarch nodded with satisfaction. Good. Then it is settled. A'Gui, you go back and rest now. Keep your strength up these next few days. You'll be wed in 3 days. I gave an acknowledging nod. As I stepped out of the courtyard, I heard footsteps behind me. It was the young lord. He had followed me. He blocked my path. He said, the wedding is in 3 days. Do you have anything to say? I looked at him, thought for a moment, and shook my head. He stared at me with a strange look in his eyes. Don't you have anything you want to ask? Like whether I like you or not, or if I'll treat you well in the future? I smiled and said, young lord, you said it yourself yesterday. You don't like me, and I don't need to like you either. I have kept that in mind. He paused in surprise. I continued, rest assured, I know my place. I am here to bear children, not to seek your favor. In the future, whoever you wish to take, or whoever you wish to dote on, that is your choice. My only concern is bearing children and raising them. His brow furrowed. Are you just accepting your fate? He asked. While I looked at him, I felt a sudden sense of bewilderment. He does not like me. Isn't my acceptance of fate exactly what he wants? Why does he seem unhappy instead? But I didn't ask. I only said, my lord, I have had no schooling. I do not understand profound principles, but I do know that one should be content. Rising from a menial maid to the consort of the heir is already a supreme blessing. To ask for anything more would be greed. Having said that, I bowed to him and turned to leave. After walking a long distance, I glanced back. He was still standing there, motionless. 3 days later, I was married. There was no grand dowry procession, no guests greeting me at the gates. Only a few tables were set within the Marquis's estate, and the family shared a meal together. Wearing my bridal robes, covered by a red veil, I was guided to the bridal chamber. I sat on the edge of the bed, listening to the clamor outside, slowly fading into silence. The door opened. Footsteps approached from afar. They stopped right before me. My veil was lifted. I looked up, meeting the heir's eyes. He was dressed in scarlet wedding attire, making his features look even more handsome. He looked at me, with an expression impossible to read. Shen A'Gui from this moment on. You are mine. I nodded. He sat down beside me and suddenly asked, do you know what merit I earned in front of the emperor that day? I shook my head. He was silent for a moment and said, I killed a man. I was stunned, he continued. That man was an assassin, hiding among the guards, nearly striking the emperor. I blocked a sword strike and killed him in return. The emperor rewarded me because I saved his life. I didn't know what to say when he turned to look at me and suddenly smiled. There was a hint of exhaustion in his smile. Aren't you curious why I'm telling you this? I shook my head. He laughed again, this time with something else in his smile. Because you are my wife. From now on, these things can only be said to you. My heart skipped a beat. He suddenly leaned in close enough for me to see his eyelashes. Shen A'Gui, as for having children, there is no rush. I was frozen. He said, you're still too young. Only 16. Let's focus on your health for 2 years before considering anything else. After saying that, he stood up and walked toward the door. Upon reaching the threshold, he paused and looked back at me. You sleep on the bed tonight. I'll sleep in the study. It will be the same from now on. The door shut. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at that door, unable to snap out of it for a long time. He said there was no rush. He said to wait 2 years. I was suddenly a bit confused. What did he actually mean? The heir's words kept spinning in my mind. Let's focus on building up your health for 2 years first. Does he think I'm too young to be a wife? Or does he think my background is too humble to bear his children? Or is it what that cousin said, that he has someone else in his heart, so he doesn't want to touch me? The more I think, the more confused I get. I'll just stop thinking about it. He said he wasn't in a hurry anyway, so I'll just wait. 2 years it is. I'm well fed and well clothed, and my younger siblings are being taken care of too. Why should I worry? The next morning, I went to pay my respects to the matriarch. The matriarch saw me arrive alone, and she paused in surprise. Where is Yan? Did the heir go to the study? I answered honestly. The matriarch's brows knit together. She looked at me, her gaze filled with inquiry. I lowered my eyes, pretending not to see. He didn't sleep in the room last night, the matriarch asked. I nodded. The matriarch was silent for a moment, then sighed. That boy. She didn't ask anything else. She took my hand and we chatted for a while. Then she gifted me a set of jewelry. She told me to go back and rest. I left the main courtyard and headed back. Passing through the garden, I ran into that cousin again. She was standing by the rockery, her eyes lighting up when she saw me. She hurried over to greet me. Oh, princess. She flashed a saccharine smile. I heard the heir didn't stay in your room last night. It is only the first day of your marriage, and you're already sleeping alone. I ignored her, and as I kept walking, she chased me and blocked my path. What, did I say something wrong? Did the heir not sleep in the study? I looked at her, and suddenly, I smiled. Cousin, how did you know the heir spent the night in the study? Her expression shifted instantly. I continued, where the heir slept last night. Aside from the people in my own courtyard, no one else knows. Where did you hear that from? She opened her mouth, but couldn't say a word. I stepped closer to her and lowered my voice. You wouldn't have people watching my courtyard, would you? Her face flushed red with agitation. What nonsense are you spouting? I only heard it from someone, she snapped, embarrassed and angry. I asked, heard it from whom? Stumped by my question, she flicked her sleeves, turned, and ran off. I watched her retreating back, and I had my answer. So, she really did have people watching me. It seems she truly won't give up. I smiled slightly, not taking it to heart, and continued on my way back. But after a few steps, I suddenly stopped. Wait. If she has people watching me, what is she trying to do? Is she waiting to catch me in a mistake? Or is she waiting for the heir to go to her? Alarm bells rang in my head. The heir might not like me, but he can't go to her either. She is a cousin, and she is not married yet. If any scandal breaks out between her and the heir, the entire Marquis's household will lose face. I have to be on my guard. But how can I defend against her? I, who came from a background as a common servant, have no power or status. I can't even get close to the heir. If something truly were to happen, what would I use to stop it? Just as I was thinking this, someone called out, "Princess Consort." I turned around and saw a maid in green running toward me. She ran up to me, panting as she said, "Young mistress, the young master asks you to come over." I was stunned. Go where? To the study. My heart skipped a beat. Why does he want to see me? I followed the maid to the study. The study was in the east side of the Marquis's estate. In an isolated courtyard, there were 2 servants guarding the door. When they saw me, they stepped aside. I walked in. The young master was sitting behind his desk, busy writing. Upon hearing me, he looked up and gave me a glance. "You're here," he said. "Sit down." I took a seat on the nearby chair. He went back to his writing and said nothing more. I sat there watching him write. His handwriting was beautiful, bold and flowing, done in one seamless stroke. Though I can't read, I could tell it was exquisite. A moment later, he set down his brush, looked up and asked, "Did you sleep well last night?" I nodded at his question. He stared at me, his gaze somewhat strange. "Sleeping alone? Aren't you afraid?" I shook my head. "Not afraid. I've been sleeping alone since I was small." He went silent for a while, then suddenly asked, "Was your childhood difficult?" I was taken aback. It was the first time someone had ever asked me that. I thought for a moment and answered honestly, "It was. I started working at 8, doing every chore imaginable. My hands would be covered in frostbite in winter, and my skin would peel from the sun in summer. The food was bad too. Thin porridge and vegetable stalks, sometimes only 1 meal a day." His brow furrowed. "And now?" he asked. "Is it still hard?" I smiled. "It isn't hard anymore. Now I eat well, dress well, and have people to serve me. It's 100 times better than before." He looked at me. There was something in his eyes I couldn't quite read. "Shen A'Gui, you are content with what you have." "It is quite good," I said, not knowing what else to say. So I simply nodded. He spoke again. "The reason I had you come here is that there is something I want to tell you." I braced myself and waited. He hesitated for a moment, then began, "That cousin of mine, Liu Rulin, grew up in the Marquis's manor, and we studied together. My mother likes her and wanted me to marry her, but I didn't want to." I was stunned. He was actually explaining this to me. He continued, "I didn't want to, not because I dislike her, but because she is too calculating, too full of schemes. If I married her, there would be no peace in the household." He looked at me, his gaze profound. "You are different. You haven't studied and don't have those twisty, complicated thoughts. Marrying you puts my mind at ease." I didn't know how to respond, so I just kept nodding. He suddenly laughed. "What? Nothing to say." I opened my mouth and managed to squeeze out, "My lord, telling me all this, is it to put my mind at ease?" He paused for a moment and then laughed. This time, it was a genuine laugh, his expression filled with a hint of amusement. "You aren't so foolish after all," he said while I scratched my head. "I may not be clever, but I'm not a fool either." He laughed even harder. Once he finished laughing, he stood up. He walked over to me. "Shen A'Gui," he said, "the reason I'm telling you this is to make it clear. You are my lawfully wedded princess consort, not some mere ornament. If anyone bullies you in the future, you tell me. If you run into trouble, come to me. We are husband and wife. Your concerns are my concerns." I looked up at him. He was standing right in front of me, backlit, making it hard to see his expression, but his eyes, they were different than before. Before, when he looked at me, it was like looking at a handy tool. Now, he looked at me as if I were a person. A strange feeling suddenly welled up in my heart, a sour, swelling ache. I couldn't quite put a name to it. "Your Highness," I began, my voice sounding a bit raspy. "Thank you for being so good to me. I will keep it in mind, and I will definitely—" "Stop right there." He interrupted me. "There you go again." I said, "There is no rush." He held out his hand. "Get up. I want to take you somewhere." I placed my hand in his palm. His hand was large, very warm as he grasped my hand and pulled me to my feet. I followed him outside, my mind still lingering on that last sentence. He said there was no rush. He truly wasn't in a rush, but I felt like I was starting to be. The prince took me to the storehouse. The storehouse was huge, with rows of shelves filled with items, silks and porcelain, jewelry and trinkets. It was dizzying to look at. "My grandmother told me to bring you here," the prince said. "You've just arrived. If you're lacking anything, just pick whatever you like." I was stunned. "Pick whatever I like." He nodded. "Pick whatever you like. Take whatever catches your eye." I stood at the doorway of the storeroom, unable to move for a long time. The prince looked at me and laughed. "What is it? Are you afraid to take it?" I shook my head. "It is not that I'm afraid. It is just that there is too much. I don't know what to take." He walked up to a shelf and picked up a hairpin. The hairpin was made of jade, glowing and translucent, with a plum blossom carved into it. "How about this one?" he asked me. I took it, looked at it, and then put it back. "It is too valuable." I said, "I'm afraid I'll break it." He picked up a bolt of silk next. It was a deep crimson color, with subtle patterns woven into it. "How about this?" I touched it. The fabric was as smooth as water. I had never seen such fine material before. This is also too good. I said, I'm not used to wearing things like this. He put down the silk, turned around to look at me. Shen A'Gui, he said, you are the princess consort. You deserve these things. I looked at him, not knowing what to say. He sighed, walked up to me. What are you afraid of? He asked. I lowered my head, looking at the tips of my shoes. After a long while, I finally replied, my prince, I said. I'm afraid because these things are too good. I'm afraid that if I get used to them, and one day they are taken away, it will be painful. I'm afraid that once I reach out to take them, I won't be able to pull back. He was silent for a long time, so long that I thought he wouldn't answer. But finally, he placed his hand on my shoulder. Shen A'Gui, he said, with me here. These things will never be taken away. I looked up at him. His eyes were so bright, as if they were lit by lamps. I promise, he said. That day, I didn't take anything. It wasn't that I didn't dare, but that I didn't want his kindness. I know. But how long can this kindness last? I don't know. What if one day he changes? What if one day he takes a new lover? What if one day he finds me annoying and casts me aside? By then, the hand I had reached out would be stuck, and it would hurt even more, so I wouldn't take it. If I didn't take it, there would be no attachments. If I didn't take it when the day came to leave, I could make a clean break. But the heir didn't know what I was thinking. He thought I was just timid, insecure, and inexperienced. He told me to slowly adapt, slowly get used to it, and slowly become a part of this family. I nodded in agreement, but in my heart I knew he and I were never meant to be on the same path. He is the clouds in the sky, and I am the mud on the ground. The clouds may occasionally descend to stay with the mud for a while, but the clouds must return to the heavens, and the mud must remain on the earth. I never dared to think otherwise, but things never go the way I expect. On the 7th day of our marriage, someone came from the palace. This time, it wasn't just a eunuch delivering a decree, but an imperial edict from the empress herself, summoning the heir's wife to the palace for an audience. When the matriarch received the edict, her face changed. I was stunned too. The empress wants to see me. I changed into a new outfit and boarded the carriage with the matron from the palace. The prince did not come. He had official business this morning and left very early. Before he left, he checked on me, saying, don't be afraid, the empress is very kind. She won't make things difficult for you. I nodded, but in my heart I had no confidence at all. Who is the empress anyway? The mother of the nation, ruler of all the people, a lowly maid like me. Why would she want to see me? The carriage wheels rumbled on, and as we moved forward, my heart was racing. The matron sitting across from me looked to be about 40 years old, with a clean and dignified appearance, dressed in a gray-blue work uniform. From the moment we boarded, she hadn't said a word, but she kept glancing at me from time to time. How should I put it? It wasn't a casual look, nor was it contempt. It felt more like she was scrutinizing me. I felt even more unsettled. Matron, I couldn't help but ask, why does Her Majesty wish to see me? The matron looked at me and suddenly smiled. Your Highness, please do not be nervous. Her Majesty simply wishes to meet you. Meet me? I was even more confused. What is there to meet about me? The matron didn't answer. She only said, you will know once you arrive. The carriage passed through the palace gates and stopped before an ornate moon gate. The matron helped me down from the carriage and guided me inside. The palace was so immense, layer upon layer of gates, hallway after hallway. I was completely dizzy. Finally, we entered a palace with 3 large characters written above the door, Cunning Palace, the Empress's personal residence. The matron told me to wait under the veranda. She went in to announce me. I stood there, watching the maids and eunuchs passing by, all keeping their eyes straight, walking with brisk steps. No one looked at me, nor did anyone acknowledge me. I was like a shadow, standing in the corner, without moving. After a while, the matron came out and beckoned to me, Crown Princess Consort, please follow me. I took a deep breath and followed her inside. The hall was much warmer than it was outside. The floor was covered with thick rugs, which felt soft underfoot. Incense burned in the hall, filling the air with a pleasant scent. The empress sat on the dais. I knelt and kowtowed, saying, your humble servant Shen pays her respects. To the empress. Rise, she said in a gentle voice. I stood up, lowering my eyes and not daring to look up. Come closer, let me get a look at you. I took 2 steps forward. Stop, closer. I took another 2 steps. Now, I was only a few paces away from her. Lift your head. I lifted my head, meeting the empress's eyes. She was younger than I had imagined, appearing to be in her early 30s. She was incredibly beautiful, with an indescribable air of nobility in her features. She wore simple, casual robes, with only a phoenix hairpin in her hair. Yet, her presence was so overwhelming it was hard to breathe. She scrutinized me, and I could only let her examine me. After a long moment, she smiled. You seem to be an honest child. And you have a dignified appearance? I didn't know what to say. I had no choice but to kneel again. Your humble servant thanks the Empress for her kind words. Get up, there is no need for all this kneeling. Give her a seat, I nodded. A palace maid brought over a cushioned stool. I sat down on the very edge of the stool. I didn't know where to put my hands or feet. The Empress looked at me, her gaze carrying a trace of curiosity. I hear you were chosen personally by the Matriarch, and that your family's women are blessed with a unique fate. My face flushed with embarrassment. How could she ask about such a thing so directly? But I dared not refuse to answer. I could only bite the bullet and nod. It is, the Empress smiled, her smile full of hidden meaning. Good. Very good. I didn't understand what she meant, so I could only lower my eyes, waiting for her to continue. She didn't continue. Instead, she changed the subject. How does the heir treat you? I thought for a moment and answered honestly, the heir treats me very well. In what way is he good to you? I thought again. The heir told me not to be afraid and said if I need anything, I should come to him. He even took me to the storehouse and told me to pick whatever I liked. And he also said, what else did he say? I bit my lip. He said there was no rush to have children and that I should take 2 years to build up my health first. The room fell silent for a moment. I looked up and saw the Empress's eyes light up. She said, he said there is no rush. Yes, the Empress suddenly laughed. This time she laughed heartily. Good, very good indeed. She repeated good twice more, her eyes crinkling. I was even more confused. What was so funny about that? Once the Empress finished laughing, she suddenly stood up, walked over to me. He looked down at me. His gaze held something I could not understand. Lady Shen, the reason I summoned you today is to speak with you about something. I stood up in a hurry and listened with my head bowed. I have a niece. She is 15 this year and is quite beautiful. She is also very talented. I had always intended to betroth her to the heir, but the dowager took the lead and brought you into the household. My heart sank abruptly, so that was it. So it was all for this. I lowered my eyes, waiting for him to continue. I had originally thought that if you were a restless sort, I would have my own ways of dealing with you. But seeing you today, he paused and smiled. You are quite unexpectedly a sensible person. I did not know what to say. I could only stand there. The heir being good too is your own good fortune, but you must remember, you are the heir's consort. You are the future mistress of the Marquis's estate, not some plaything whose only purpose is to bear children. I called you here today to tell you this. Live your life well. Do not think about those trivial matters. If the heir ever dares to bully you, come and tell me. I will stand up for you. I was stunned. He was protecting me with these words. I raised my head and met his eyes. He looked at me with a trace of a smile in his eyes. What are you startled? I came to my senses and quickly knelt down. Your humble subject thanks the Empress for her grace. Rise, he said. Come to the palace often in the future to keep me company. I find it quite stifling here in the palace. I stood up, my mind in complete turmoil. Is the Empress trying to win my favor, or does she truly believe I am decent? And is she genuinely willing to protect me? I do not know, but I do know this. From this day forward, I have a powerful ally behind me. Upon leaving the Kunming Palace, I was still in a daze. The matron saw me to the palace gate, and as we parted, she suddenly said to me, Princess Consort, she said, do you know why the Empress treats you so well? I shook my head and the matron smiled, lowering her voice. Because the Empress was also prone to easy conception. She had been married into the palace for 12 years and gave birth to 5 children, 3 sons and 2 daughters. But 5 years ago, a difficult labor ruined her health, and she could never conceive again. When she saw you, she saw herself from years ago. I froze. The matron nodded at me, then turned and boarded the carriage. I stood where I was, motionless for a long time. The Empress was also prone to easy conception. She also had 5 children. When she saw me, she saw herself from years ago. I suddenly understood the meaning of her final words when she said, live your life well and don't think of those unnecessary things. She wasn't warning me. She was advising me to cherish what I have. On the way back to the manor, idle talk. I kept thinking about the Empress's words. She asked me to come to the palace often to talk to her. I couldn't make sense of it. She told me to come to her if I had any trouble. She even said if the heir bullied me, she would handle it for me. Are these words true, or was it just empty pleasantries? I couldn't make sense of it. I decided to stop thinking about it. Whatever happens later, I'll deal with it later. The carriage stopped at the manor gate. I stepped out and walked inside. Just as I passed the inner gate, a maid came running over, looking panicked. My lady, it is terrible. The young mistress is in your quarters, demanding to see you. I paused in my tracks. What is Lu Rulin doing in my quarters? I quickened my pace toward my own courtyard. Before I had even entered, I heard voices coming from inside. Don't think she is something special just because she is the heir's wife. Let me tell you. She's just a lowly servant girl who can't even read a single word. What kind of future do you think you have following her? I pushed the door open. Liu Rulan was standing in the courtyard, gesticulating at the maids in my quarters. The maids kept their heads bowed, not daring to make a sound. Seeing me walk in, Liu Rulan's eyes lit up. She gave a sickly sweet smile. The heir's wife is back. I was just waiting for you. I looked at her and said nothing as she walked up to me. My lady, she whispered. I have a favor to ask of you. I looked at her, waiting for her to continue. She looked left and right, then leaned in closer, dropping her voice even lower. I want to ask you to allow me to be with the heir. I was stunned for a moment. She continued, you know that. The heir and I are childhood sweethearts, who grew up together. If it weren't for my father's mourning period, I would already be his wife. Now that you occupy this position, I don't blame you. But I want to beg you, let me into the household. Even if it's just as a servant, I would accept it. As she spoke, her eyes turned red. Tears welled up in her eyes. Crown Princess, please grant my wish, she said, grabbing my hand. I promise that once I am in, I will be well behaved. I will never cause you any trouble. If you tell me to go east, I will never go west. If you tell me to stand, I will never sit. I only wish to stay by the Crown Prince's side. I beg you, she said, and her knees buckled as she prepared to kneel. I caught her at once. Cousin, I said, what are you doing? She raised her head, looking at me with tear-filled eyes. Crown Princess, she said, please have pity on me. I have been in love with the Crown Prince for 10 years. I cannot live without him. I looked at her, finding it suddenly amusing. Was she genuinely foolish? Or just pretending? Did she really think I would agree? I released her hand and stepped back. Cousin, I said, if you want to join the household, you should be begging the Crown Prince, the Matriarch, or the Marquioness. What use is there in begging me? I am not the one who decides these things. Her expression changed. I continued, furthermore, everything you said to my maids in the courtyard just now, I heard it all. You called me a menial servant, said I was illiterate, and claimed there was no future in serving me. Can someone like that really be well behaved once they enter this house? Her face flushed bright red. I was only... Those were your honest thoughts. You feel I am unworthy of being the Crown Princess, and that you are 10,000 times better than I am. You don't want to come here to serve me. You want to squeeze me out. You want to get into this house, not to serve me, but to push me out. You want to take my place. Caught off guard, her face turned bright red. How dare you? Who do you think you are to lecture me? I ignored her. I raised my voice to call for help. Someone show the cousin out. Two matrons stepped forward. They grabbed Liu Rulan and dragged her away. Liu Rulan struggled the whole way, cursing at me. Shen A'Gui, don't get too arrogant. The heir won't ever like you. Just you wait. Just you wait. Her voice faded into the distance. The courtyard finally fell silent. The maids stood there, heads bowed, afraid to even breathe. I looked at them and said, next time the cousin visits, tell her I am not here. They all nodded in unison. I turned and walked inside. I closed the door and sat on the edge of the bed. I felt suddenly exhausted. Liu Rulan's petty, malicious intent was something I saw clearly, but her words were like a thorn in my side. She said the heir wouldn't like me. Is it true? The heir treats me well. I know that, but is it love? Or is it just a sense of duty? Or just pity? Is it only because I am his legally wedded wife? I thought of the things he had said. You are my wife. We are one as husband and wife. As long as I am here, you will want for nothing. What did those words mean? Did he truly see me as his wife? Or were they just empty words? I do not know. But I do know this. I have started to care. I care whether or not he likes me. I care if he treats others better. I care if he takes a concubine in the future. Or if he favors someone else. What has come over me? I clearly told myself not to be greedy. I clearly told myself not to think about those foolish things. But why have I started thinking about them anyway? I collapsed onto the bed, staring blankly at the canopy. I don't know how much time had passed when the door suddenly creaked. I sat up and saw the prince push the door open and enter. He looked at me, his brow furrowing. What is wrong? Why is your complexion so poor? I shook my head. It is nothing, he said, walking over and sat down beside me. I heard. He said that Liu Rulan came here to cause trouble. What did she say? I lowered my eyes, staying silent. He reached out and lifted my chin. I looked into his eyes. Shen A'Gui, he said. Tell me what she said. I looked into his eyes. Those eyes were bright and very serious. I opened my mouth and let those words out. She said that you don't like me. He was stunned. Then he smiled. Shen A'Gui, he said. How do you know I don't like you? My heart skipped a beat. What did he say? I stared at him blankly, my mind gone completely blank. He said, how do you know I don't like you? What does that mean? He looked at me, his gaze filled with a smile. What is wrong? Were you startled? I came to my senses, opened my mouth, not knowing what to say. He withdrew his hand, leaning back against the chair. Shen A'Gui, there are some things I had intended to say later, but since Liu Rulan has caused such a scene, I might as well tell you now. I sat up straight, waiting for her to speak. She looked into my eyes and said clearly, I don't dislike you. I waited for a long time, just for that one line. I couldn't help but ask, and then, what about after that? He smiled. After that, I started to like you. My heart skipped another beat. He had started to like me. When did it start? Why, as if he saw what I was thinking, he continued on his own. That day in the storeroom, you said you were afraid that once you took something, you'd feel bad if you lost it later. That was when I felt you were quite interesting. Just because of that? He shook his head, not entirely. And that night, you said you knew your position, that you were here to bear children, not to win my favor. You said you weren't greedy, content with what you had. At that moment, I thought you were truly rare. I fell silent. He continued, I grew up in the Marquis's estate, and I've seen plenty of women. Those noble ladies. They all had their noses in the air, and their hearts were full of schemes. Not to mention someone like Liu Rulan, who would practically chain me to her waist. Only you are different. You don't scheme. You don't flatter. You aren't greedy. You just live your life earnestly, and are content being yourself. He looked at me, his expression softening. Shen A'Gui, when I'm with you, I don't have to be on guard against anyone. I don't have to guess anyone's intentions. And I don't have to deal with all those underhanded tricks. I can just be myself. This feeling, I've never experienced it before. As I listened to his words, a strange feeling welled up inside me, a sour, swelling feeling. I couldn't put a name to it, so I spoke up, my voice a little hoarse. Are you saying you love me? Because I'm not a bother. He froze for a moment, then laughed out loud. Once he finished laughing, he leaned in close to me, so close I could see myself in his eyes. Shen A'Gui, I love you. Because you are you. Not because you aren't a bother. Not because you're sensible. And not because you can bear children. It is because of who you are as a person. He paused, and added, although sometimes you really are quite silly. My eyes suddenly stung. I lowered my head, not wanting him to see, but he saw it anyway. He reached out and lifted my chin, looking at me. What is wrong? I shook my head, pushing that stinging sensation back down. It is nothing, I said. It is just that no one has ever said anything like that to me. His brow furrowed. He said, from now on, I'll tell you every day. I couldn't help but smile. He smiled too. We just looked at each other like that, neither of us saying a word. After a long while, he suddenly spoke up. Shen A'Gui, starting today, I'm sleeping in the bedroom. I was startled, he continued. It is not what you're thinking. I just want to spend time with you. You sleep on the bed, I'll sleep here. We can talk, chat for a while, all right. I looked into his eyes and nodded. That night, he really did move into the room. He had someone set up a daybed by the window, spread out the bedding, and we were separated by a screen. I lay on the bed. He is on the other side of the screen. The room is very quiet. We can hear each other breathing. He suddenly speaks. Shen A'Gui, are you asleep? No. Then tell me about when you were a child. I think for a moment. I start by saying I worked since I was 8. I tell him about carrying cargo at the docks. I tell him about sewing patches in the embroidery shop. I tell him about scrubbing the bluestone floors at the Marquis's estate. He listens, asking every now and then, was it hard back then? It was hard, but I got used to it. What about now? It is not hard anymore. Now I eat well, dress well, and have someone to talk to. There is a silence on the other side of the screen. Then he says, from now on, I will talk to you every day. I smile, not answering. But in my heart, I believe him. The days pass just like that. The heir goes out to perform his duties during the day and returns at night to keep me company. Sometimes he talks about his day. Sometimes he listens to me talk about mine. And before we know it, we fall asleep. True to his word, he didn't touch me. He keeps his promises. He said he would wait 2 years. And he truly meant to wait 2 years. Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night and look at him through the screen. Moonlight shines in through the window, lighting up his face, looking so peaceful. In those moments, I think to myself, this man is mine. Who am I, Shen A'Gui, to deserve this? To have a husband such as him? But the good days didn't last long. That day was the 15th. I went to pay my respects to the matriarch. As I entered, I saw the Marchioness was also there. She saw me. Her expression was indifferent. She said nothing. I paid my respects to the matriarch, and then to the Marchioness. She just gave a hum. As an acknowledgement, the elder lady took my hand and told me to sit. A'Gui, she asked, how have these days been treating you? I nodded. They've been very good. And, Yan, has he been treating you well? I nodded again. He has. The elder lady smiled and patted my hand. That is good. Just then, the Marchioness suddenly spoke up. Elder lady, there is something I would like to discuss with you. The elder lady looked at her. What is it? The Marchioness glanced at me, her gaze carrying something indescribable. I wished to take a concubine for the heir. My heart plummeted. The elder lady frowned. A concubine, she asked. Why the sudden thought? The Marchioness replied, the heir is 19 this year, and still has no children. The heir's wife has been here for a month, and there is still no news. I was thinking perhaps we should bring a concubine in to help continue the family line sooner. The elder lady was silent for a moment, then looked at me. I lowered my eyes and stayed silent. A'Gui. The elder lady asked, what do you say? I looked up at her. Elder lady, the heir says there is no hurry. The Marchioness sneered, no hurry. He may not be in a hurry, but we are. The prince's manor has only had one heir per generation, and he is the only one left. If he isn't in a hurry and something happens to him, what will become of the prince's manor? I lowered my eyes and did not say another word. The elder lady was silent for a while and said, we shall wait until Yan returns to discuss this. The Marchioness tried to speak further, but the elder lady waved her hand and dismissed her. Only I and the elder lady were left in the room. She looked at me and sighed. Do not blame her. She is just anxious. I nodded. I know. The elder lady added, since Yan said there is no hurry, then we shall wait a while longer. Don't you worry, as long as I am here. No one can force you. I looked at him, a wave of warmth washing over me, but I knew he could protect me for a time, but not for a lifetime. The Marchioness is the heir's own mother. If she wants to take a concubine for her son, who could possibly stop her? When the heir returned that evening, I told him about what happened. His brow furrowed. My mother said that. I nodded. He was silent for a moment, then said, don't pay her any mind. I will handle this. I looked at him and asked, do you truly not want a concubine? He was stunned. What? Do you wish for me to take one? I shook my head. I do not. He smiled. Then that settles it. I watched him, feeling a sudden sense of unease. My lord, I said, your mother does this for your own good. If you never take a concubine, she is bound to be displeased. He raised an eyebrow, and so I bit my lip. So perhaps you should reconsider. He cut me off. Shen A'Gui, I will say this once more. I will handle this. If my mother is unhappy, I will go console her. If she keeps insisting, I will speak to her. You just rest easy and stop thinking about all that nonsense. I looked at him, and my eyes suddenly stung. How could he be so kind? He saw my expression and smiled. What? Are you touched? He reached out to ruffle my hair. I nodded. Silly girl. He said, you are my wife. If I don't treat you well, who should I treat well? That night, I lay in bed, tossing and turning, unable to sleep. I thought about what the Marchioness had said. Still no sign of a baby yet. I touched my own stomach. Flat, with nothing there. I am 16 this year. The heir is 19, and we have been married for a month. We haven't been together yet. Reasonably, I shouldn't be worried. But the Marchioness is worried, and once she is worried, she'll think of a solution. What kind of solution could she possibly think of? Taking a concubine. What if she really finds a concubine for the heir? What if she finds someone younger than her, prettier than her, and better at pleasing people than her? Would the heir still be this good to me? I don't know, but I do know one thing. I have started to feel afraid of losing him, afraid of him falling for someone else, afraid that all of this is just a dream. The next morning, I went to pay my respects to the matriarch. When the matriarch saw me, she paused. What is wrong? She asked. You look so pale. I shook my head and said it was nothing, but she didn't believe me. She took my hand and told me to sit down. A'Gui, she said, tell me whatever is on your mind. I looked at her and my eyes suddenly stung. Matriarch, I said, I am afraid. The matriarch's brows furrowed. Afraid of what? I lowered my head. Unable to speak, she sighed, then reached out and pulled me into her arms. Silly child, she said. What is there to fear? I am here. I buried my face in her embrace, saying nothing. After a long while, I finally spoke. Matriarch, the heir is good to me. I know, but I am afraid. I am afraid that this goodness won't last. The matriarch remained silent for a moment. Then she said, A'Gui, do you know why I married into the prince's estate? I shook my head. I came from a poor family too. My father sold tofu. My mother washed clothes for others. When I was 14, the old marquis took a liking to me and took me in as a concubine. I looked up at her. She continued, when I entered the household, There was the main wife. There were other concubines and servants of the bedchamber. The house was full of women. The old Marquis doted on me for a while, but later, when he found someone new, he forgot all about me. Her voice dropped, tinged with bitterness. I was afraid back then too. Afraid of losing his favor, afraid of being trampled upon, afraid that I wouldn't have a place to stand in this deep, vast manor. But later I realized something. She looked at me, her gaze profound. Whether a man favors you is his business, but whether you can live well is your own business. If you pin all your hopes on him, then you have already lost. I was stunned. Yan is good to you, and that is his own intention, but you cannot pour all of your heart into him. You must have your own ideas and your own way of living. If he favors you, live your life well. If he does not, you must still be able to live your life well. Only then can you truly stand on your own. She patted my hand. A'Gui, you are still young. You will learn in time. I looked at her, and suddenly I understood something. That's right, the heir is good to me, and that is his intention, but I cannot pin all my hopes on him. I must have my own ideas and my own way of living. If he favors me, I will live my life well. If he does not, I can still live a good life. That is how one stands on their own. That evening, when the prince returned, he saw me doing needlework in the room. He walked over, picked up what I was embroidering, and looked at it. What is this? He asked. A pouch. It is for you. He was stunned for a moment, and then he smiled. You know how to make this? I nodded. Yes, I've been making them since I was 8. I've been doing it for 8 years. He held the pouch, turning it over and over to examine it. Embroidered on it was a pair of mandarin ducks. It is beautiful. I'll keep it. He tucked the pouch into his robe and sat down beside me. You're in a good mood today? He asked. I thought for a moment and said, I've figured a few things out. What things? I looked at him and said, Your Highness, you are good to me, and I remember that, but I've also made up my mind. From now on, no matter what happens, I will not fall apart. He was stunned for a moment, and then he smiled. His smile held a trace of gratification. Shen A'Gui, you've grown up. I nodded. Yes, I've grown up, but I didn't know that even greater storms were yet to come. 3 days later, someone came from the palace. It wasn't someone from the Empress, but someone from the Empress Dowager. The Empress Dowager wanted to see me. Why was she summoning me? I didn't know. But I knew that this time it wouldn't be so simple. The matron who delivered the message was stern and unsmiling. She didn't say a word the entire way. I followed behind her, entering the Empress Dowager's residence, the Shoukang Palace. The Shoukang Palace was even more imposing than the Kuning Palace, and also more stifling. Incense burned in the hall, its fragrance thick enough to make one dizzy. The Empress Dowager sat at the head, dressed in dark purple court robes, adorned with pearls and jade. Her presence was formidable. I knelt and kowtowed, declaring, Your subject, Shen, pays her respects to the Empress Dowager. Empress Dowager, wishing you peace and longevity. Rise, she said with a flat tone, betraying neither pleasure nor anger. I stood up, lowering my gaze as I awaited her questioning. She didn't ask, she simply watched me for a long, long time. Long enough to make my skin crawl before she finally spoke. Come closer. I took 2 steps forward. Closer still. I took 2 more steps. Now I was only a few paces away from her. She scrutinized me, her gaze sharp as a knife, as if she wanted to see right through me. You certainly have the look of an honest woman. Raise your head. I looked up, meeting her eyes. Her eyes were cold, cold as winter well water. Do you know why I have summoned you here? She asked. I shook my head. She let out a cold laugh. Because someone has filed a complaint against you. My heart sank abruptly. A complaint against me? Who? She continued. Someone told me that your background is base, and that you are unworthy of being the prince's consort. They say you used seductive wiles to bewitch the prince, and that you use your fertile nature to climb the social ladder. They say that the women of your family are all sirens reborn, dedicated to seducing men. My mind buzzed and exploded. Empress Dowager, I have been wronged. I knelt, and she looked at me, her expression filled with a hint of amusement. Wrongly accused. Then tell me this. Are you naturally prone to conception? I nodded, yes. Do the women in your family conceive at the slightest touch? I nodded again, yes. She laughed, a chilling sound. Well, there you have it. On that basis alone, you are nothing but a disaster. My heart sank to the depths. The Empress Dowager stood up and walked over to me. She looked down at me, her gaze filled with disdain. Do you think that just because the Empress protects you, I have no way to deal with you? Let me tell you something. I am the one who rules this harem. If I want someone to die, they will die. Kneeling on the ground, I felt cold all over. But don't worry, I will not kill you. If I kill you, the heir would hate me. I am not that foolish. She paused and continued, I am only here to tell you Do not get too full of yourself. The heir treats you well, only because I haven't spoken up yet. If I were to tell him to cast you aside, what do you think he would do? I looked up at her. She smiled, a grin full of malice. Go back now and think carefully about what I've said. I don't know how I walked out of the Shokang Palace. I only remember that my legs felt weak the entire way. Back at the estate, I dived into my room and collapsed on the bed, lying perfectly still. The Empress Dowager's words pierced my heart like a blade. She said that if she wants someone dead, they will die. She said if she demanded the heir cast me aside, what would he do? Would he listen to her? Would he abandon me? I didn't know. But I know. The Empress Dowager is the Emperor's birth mother, the most noble woman in the world. Who would dare defy her words? No matter how capable the heir is, he is but a third-rank official. In the presence of the Empress Dowager, what is he? I was suddenly afraid, not of death, but of losing him. I worked so hard to have this person in my life. I worked so hard to finally believe that he would always be good to me. But now someone tells me that all of this could vanish at any moment. I lay face down on the bed, and tears began to fall. I don't know how much time had passed when the door suddenly opened. The heir walked in, and seeing me lying on the bed, he paused for a moment. What is the matter? I didn't look up, nor did I make a sound. He reached out and turned me over, seeing my face covered in tears, his brows furrowed. Who bullied you? I shook my head. He didn't believe me and kept asking what was wrong. I looked into his eyes. They were filled with concern. Suddenly, I didn't want to hide it from him. The Empress Dowager summoned me to the palace. As I spoke, his expression changed. What did she say? I told him every word the Empress Dowager had said. His expression grew increasingly grim. Once I finished, he fell into a long silence, so long that I thought he wouldn't speak again. But eventually, he took hold of my hand and said, Shen A'Gui, do you trust me? I looked at him and nodded. He said, then remember this. No matter who comes, no matter what anyone says, I will never divorce you, whether it is the Empress Dowager or the Emperor himself. Even if the sky were to fall, I will never divorce you. My tears fell once again. He reached out and pulled me into his arms. Don't be afraid, I am here. I leaned against his chest, listening to his heartbeat, steady and rhythmic. It was so calm that I suddenly wasn't so afraid anymore. With him here, what did I have to fear? No matter how powerful the Empress Dowager is, could she possibly compare to him? But I did not know that the Empress Dowager's schemes went far beyond this. 3 days later, the heir was sent away on official business. Before he left, he came to say goodbye. He said, half a month at most. Wait for my return. I nodded, helping him pack his bags. He looked at me, suddenly reached out, pulling me into his embrace. He said, Shen A'Gui, while I am away, do not leave the house. No matter who calls for you, do not go. Wait for me to return. I nodded and replied, I will. He kissed my forehead and turned to leave. I stood at the doorway, watching his back disappear beyond the courtyard gate. A sudden sense of emptiness took hold of my heart. Now that he is gone, what should I do? But I remembered his words. No matter who calls for you, do not go. I would wait for his return. I trusted him, but I never expected that. The first person to call for me would be the Marchioness. The second day after the heir left, the Marchioness sent someone to summon me. I went. She is the heir's own mother. I could not refuse. The Marchioness was waiting for me in the main hall. Seeing me enter, a smile appeared on her face. She said, A'Gui, come, have a seat. I sat down but felt a sense of unease. He never calls me. A'Gui, why is he being so polite today? The Marchioness ordered tea to be served, and then dismissed the servants. Only the two of us remained in the room. He looked at me and sighed. He said, A'Gui, I know you don't like me. I don't blame you for that. As your mother-in-law, I haven't been good to you. I didn't know what to say, and could only listen as he continued. But A Yen is my only son. Everything I do is for what is best for him. Do you understand? I nodded. I understand. He sighed again. Suddenly he asked A'Gui, do you know why the Empress Dowager summoned you? My heart tightened. He said, it is because of me. I was stunned. He went on. I was the one who begged the Empress Dowager. I wanted her to intervene and provide a concubine for a Yan. I looked at him, a surge of indescribable emotion rising in my heart. He said, A'Gui, don't blame me. I have no other choice. A Yan is the only heir. He must have many children, but he is determined to protect you and refuses to take a concubine. I had to ask the Empress Dowager for help. I took a deep breath and asked, did the Empress Dowager agree? He shook his head no. The Empress Dowager said she would not involve herself in this matter, but she told me that she would speak to you herself. I understood now. The Empress Dowager wanting to see me was not to help the Marchioness. She only wanted to warn me, to let me know that my life is in her hands. The Marchioness looked at me, her gaze filled with a trace of guilt. "A'Gui," she said, "I know I have wronged you, but I truly had no choice. If you want to hate me, then hate me." I looked at her, and suddenly I smiled. "Madam," I said, "I do not hate you." She was taken aback for a moment. "You want to take a concubine for the heir," I continued, "for the good of the estate, and for the good of the heir." I realized her eyes had turned red. "A'Gui," she said, "you are a good child." I stood up and bowed to her. "If there is nothing else, madam, I shall take my leave." She nodded. I turned and walked away. When I reached the door, she suddenly called out to me. "A'Gui," she said. "Wait." I turned back. She looked at me, hesitating to speak. Finally, she said, "The Empress Dowager will not let this go. You must be careful yourself." My heart sank. I nodded. After leaving the main courtyard, I started to walk back. As I reached the garden, someone suddenly called out, "Heir's consort." I turned and saw an unfamiliar maidservant. She walked over, lowered her voice, and said, "Heir's consort, someone wishes to see you. Please, come with me." I frowned. "Who?" She shook her head. "I cannot say. You will know when you arrive." I remembered the heir's words. "Do not go, no matter who calls for you." I shook my head. "I will not go." The maid grew anxious. "Your Highness, the princess consort, you must go. That person said it concerns the prince. Something very important." My heart tightened. Something about the prince. What important thing? I hesitated. The maid urged, "Your Highness, the princess consort. Let's go quickly or it will be too late." I gritted my teeth and followed her, but I did not know that by going there, what was waiting for me. The maid led me through the garden, into a secluded little courtyard. The courtyard was very quiet. There was not a soul around. "Where are they?" I asked. The maid did not answer. I turned around and saw her turn and run away. Alarm bells rang in my head. I turned to leave, but the door suddenly slammed shut. I rushed to the door and pulled with all my might. The door did not budge. Someone had locked it from the outside. My heart sank to the bottom of my stomach. It was a trap. Just then, a voice came from behind me. "Princess consort, long time no see." I turned around. Liu Roland stood in the center of the yard, wearing a malicious smile, but her eyes were cold. Cold as a viper's. "Princess consort, you finally came. I've been waiting for you for a long time." I looked at her, forcing down the panic in my heart, my mind racing. "Liu Roland, what do you want?" She smiled, a very happy smile. "What do I want? I want you to understand one thing." She stood before me and whispered, "You are not worthy of being the princess consort." I took a step back, putting some distance between us. "What do you think you can achieve by locking me in here?" I asked, and he smiled even wider. "Locking you in? No, no, no. What is the point of locking you up? I just want you to watch a good show." As soon as he finished speaking, the courtyard gate suddenly opened. Someone walked in. I froze. It was the heir, wearing his official court robes. He looked travel-worn, as if he had just rushed back from out of town. But why would he be here? Didn't he leave? When Liu Roland saw him, her eyes lit up, and she hurried to greet him. "Brother Yan, you're back." The heir looked at her, frowning. "Liu Roland, you sent word to me, saying something had happened to A'Gui, and that I should return immediately. Where is she?" Liu Roland smiled and pointed at me. The heir turned his head, and upon seeing me, he was stunned. "A'Gui." He strode toward me, took my hand, and looked me up and down. "Are you all right?" I shook my head. "I'm fine." He let out a breath of relief and turned toward Liu Roland, his expression darkening. "Liu Roland, you lied to me." Liu Roland laughed, shaking with mirth. "Brother Yan, I didn't lie to you. The heir consort is indeed in trouble." She clapped her hands, and the courtyard gate opened again. This time, it was the Empress Dowager's people who entered. A pair of guards, escorting the Empress Dowager's personal matron. The matron walked in, her gaze sweeping from the heir to me, and finally resting on Liu Roland. "Cousin, is what you said true?" Liu Roland kneels down with a sorrowful expression. "Matron, please see the truth. The crown princess is having an affair, and I caught her in the act. She threatened me, forbidding me from speaking of it. I had no choice but to beg the Empress Dowager to intervene." My mind went blank with a sudden roar. "An affair," he said. "I'm having an affair." The crown prince was stunned too. He looked at me, his eyes filled with shock. "A'Gui, what is going on here?" I shook my head. I didn't do anything." Liu Roland sneered. "If you didn't, then why are you here?" She turned to the matron. "Matron, the evidence is irrefutable. You saw it with your own eyes." The crown princess was meeting her lover here, and I caught them. Tell me, what should be done? The matron looked at the crown prince, her gaze conflicted. Your highness, what do you say? The crown prince stood there, his face pale with rage. He looked at me, and I looked at him. I opened my mouth, wanting to explain, but I didn't know how. I was lured here by a trick, but who would believe that Liu Rulan set this trap to lure me here? Lure the crown prince here, and bring the Empress Dowager's people here as well. She is determined to see me destroyed. I suddenly remembered the Empress Dowager's words. She said that whoever she wants dead must die. So she didn't mean she would do it herself. She uses others to do her dirty work, and Liu Rulan is that blade. I looked at the crown prince, a wave of despair rising in my heart. Will he believe me, or will he believe Liu Rulan? I awaited his answer. The heir remained silent for a long time, so long that I thought he would not speak at all. But in the end, he did. He turned to the nanny and said word by word, I believe her. Liu Rulan's expression shifted. The nanny was also taken aback. The heir continued, she is my wife. I know the kind of person she is. She would never do such a thing. Liu Rulan became frantic. Brother A Yan, you saw with your own eyes that he was here. As a woman of status, what is she doing in such a remote place? If this is not illicit affairs, then what is it? The heir looked at her, his gaze chilling. Liu Rulan, he said, stop twisting the truth here. I ask you, how did you know she was here? How did you know something had happened to her? How did you know she was involved in an affair? Liu Rulan was stumped. The heir stepped closer to her. You sent a message to me, saying she was in trouble, telling me to return immediately. How did you know she was in trouble? You have been stalking her, haven't you? Liu Rulan took a step back. Her face drained of color. The heir continued, you set this trap, luring her here, then luring me here as well, and even summoned the Empress Dowager's people. What were you trying to do? You wanted to ruin her, didn't you? Liu Rulan was rendered speechless by his accusations. But then the nanny spoke up. Heir, she said, what you say makes sense, but the young cousin's words are not entirely baseless either. The heir consort was indeed found here alone. This matter requires an explanation. The heir looked at her, his gaze piercing. Nanny, he said, you want an explanation. I will give you one. She was lured here. The one who tricked her is Liu Rulan. The nanny frowned. Do you have proof? The heir replied, I will investigate the proof. But before that, no one will lay a finger on him. He took my hand and pulled me behind him. Liu Rulan stood there, her face deathly pale. The matron was silent for a moment and sighed. The heir, he said, you are protecting him. I understand. I understand, the matron replied. But what about the Empress Dowager? You must provide an explanation. The heir said, I will explain it to the Empress Dowager myself. The matron nodded and turned to leave. Liu Rulan wanted to leave too, but the heir stopped her. Liu Rulan said, just you wait. Liu Rulan turned back to look at him, her eyes full of hatred. Brother A Yan, he said, you are really going to protect him? The heir said nothing. Liu Rulan laughed, a desolate, bitter laugh. I have liked you since I was a child. I've liked you for 10 years. You have never even looked at me properly. She is just a menial servant who has only been here a month. Yet you treat her like a treasure. Why? The heir looked at her, his gaze calm. Because, he said, she is 10,000 times better than you. Liu Rulan's face twisted. She shot me a fierce glare, then turned and ran off. The courtyard fell silent. The heir turned around and looked at me. I stood there, my eyes stinging painfully. He reached out and pulled me into his embrace. Don't be afraid, he said. I am here. I buried my face in his chest and let my tears fall. Why do you trust me? I asked him, and he smiled. Because you are Shen A'Gui. You wouldn't lie to me, he said. Because you wouldn't lie to me that night. The heir personally escorted me back to my quarters. He told me to get some good rest. He said he had to make a trip to the palace to explain everything to the Empress Dowager. I held on to him, not wanting him to leave. He patted my hand and said, don't worry, I'll be back before you know it. After he left, I lay on the bed, tossing and turning, unable to sleep. Would the Empress Dowager believe him? Would she let me go? I didn't know. But I did know that from this day on, I would no longer let anyone bully me. This trap set by Liu Rulan nearly cost me my life. If not for the heir's trust in me, I would have been finished today. I cannot keep relying on him to protect me. I have to stand on my own 2 feet. Early the next morning, the heir returned. He looked very tired, but he was smiling. It is over, he said. The Empress Dowager believed me. I let out a sigh of relief. He added, as for Liu Rulan, she has been summoned to the palace. I was stunned, he sneered. She wanted to frame you. The Empress Dowager doesn't like being used as a pawn. Now that she's been summoned, it's uncertain if she'll ever get out. My heart was filled with mixed emotions. Liu Roland tried to harm me. I hated her. But hearing she might be in serious trouble, I felt a twinge of sympathy. The heir sensed my hesitation and sighed. "A'Gui," he said, "you're just too soft-hearted." I shook my head and said nothing. He held my hand and said, "Regardless, no one will ever bully you again." I nodded, but I knew that he had said that too soon, because even greater storms are yet to come. A month later, I discovered that I was pregnant. I was startled awake by a wave of nausea. That morning, as soon as I sat up, my stomach began to churn. I covered my mouth, rushed to the basin, and vomited violently. The heir had not yet left. Hearing the commotion, he ran over, saw me retching like that, and his face turned pale. "What is wrong?" He steadied me. "Where do you feel unwell?" "I'll go get the doctor." I shook my head, wanting to say I was fine, but the moment I opened my mouth, I retched again. The heir panicked. He raised his voice to call for help. "Someone, go get the doctor quickly." The doctor arrived shortly after. He was an old man with gray hair and beard, a regular physician for the Marquise's estate. He checked my pulse, stroking his beard, and pondered for a moment. Then he stood up and bowed to the heir. "Congratulations, young master. The Princess Consort is with child." The room went quiet for a moment. The heir was stunned. I was stunned as well. With child? I was pregnant. The heir was the first to snap out of it. He grabbed the doctor's arm. "What did you say?" "Say it again." The doctor was startled and stammered. "I said the Princess Consort is with child. The pulse is smooth and strong. It is undoubtedly a pregnancy pulse." The heir released him and turned to look at me. His expression looked as if he'd seen a ghost. I sat on the edge of the bed, my hand resting unconsciously on my lower abdomen. There was a child inside, his child and mine. The heir walked over. He knelt down in front of me. He looked at me, his expression complex. "A'Gui, you," he said. I don't know what to say. I could only look at him. Suddenly he smiled. The smile spread slowly from the corners of his mouth until his whole face was beaming. "A'Gui, we're going to have a child," he said, reaching out to cover my hand on my stomach. His hands were trembling. He was shivering. Suddenly my nerves calmed down. I looked at him and smiled too. "Yes, we are having a child," I said. The news quickly spread through the Marquise's estate. The Matriarch was the first to arrive. When he walked through the door, I was lying on the bed. The consort told me to stay in bed, saying I must be careful during the first 3 months. The Matriarch hurried over, reached the bedside, and took my hand in his. "A'Gui, good child." "Good child." His eyes were red. I looked at him, feeling warm inside. How many years had he been waiting for this child? The Marchioness came too. He stood at the door and did not come in. I looked at him, and he looked back at me. After a long while, he walked in and stood by my bed. "A'Gui, take good care of yourself," he said. I nodded. He stood there for a moment longer, then turned and left. The heir walked him out, and when he returned, he told me, "My mother is actually quite happy. She just finds it hard to show it." I smiled and said nothing that night. The heir had the screen moved away. He pulled the couch to the side of the bed and slept on it himself. He can reach out and touch me. I am lying on the bed. He is on the daybed. The room is very quiet, only the sound of our breathing. "A'Gui, thank you." He speaks suddenly. I am taken aback. "Thank me for what?" "Thank you for giving me a home," he says, and I turn onto my side, looking at him through the darkness. Moonlight shines in from the window, lighting up his face. His eyes are bright, as if they were lit by candles. "My lord, I thank you too," I say, and he smiles, reaching out to hold my hand. "Sleep. I'll watch over you," he says, and I close my eyes with a smile on my lips. At that moment, I felt like the happiest person in the world, but I didn't know that happiness is always fragile. After the news of the pregnancy spread, visitors came one after another. There were relatives from the Marquise's estate, colleagues of the heir, and ladies and young misses from various households. I spent my days receiving guests, exhausted to the point of collapse, but the most unexpected guests were those from the palace. First, the Empress sent people to deliver gifts, a full 2 large trunks filled with supplements, silks, and jewelry. Then the Empress Dowager also sent people with gifts, even more than the Empress. The elderly maid who delivered the message said, "The Empress Dowager told me to rest well, and that once the child is born, she will bestow a name upon them personally." I knelt to thank her for the rewards, but my heart felt a mix of complicated emotions. Doesn't the Empress Dowager dislike me? Why is she suddenly being so kind to me? The heir said it is because of the baby. I thought about it, and it made sense. Regardless, this child is the only heir to the prince's estate. No matter how much the Empress Dowager dislikes me, she must like this child. But I didn't know. The Empress Dowager's intentions were not that simple. When I was 5 months pregnant, my belly was already quite prominent. That day, there was another messenger from the palace. This time, the Empress Dowager summoned me personally. The heir was worried and wanted to accompany me, but the matron sent to convey the message said the Empress Dowager wished to see only me. The heir's expression turned grim, but there was nothing he could do. I comforted him. It is fine, the Empress Dowager won't do anything to me. I am carrying a child after all. He looked at me, sighed. Go and return quickly. I will be waiting for you, he said. I nodded and followed the matron into the palace. Shukang Palace was just as it had been before, majestic and stifling. The Empress Dowager sat in the place of honor. Seeing me enter, she actually wore a smile. Come, have a seat. I sat down, shielding my belly. She looked at me, her gaze lingering on my belly for a long time. How many months? She asked. Your Majesty. 5 months. She nodded. Suddenly she asked, is it a boy or a girl? Do you know? I shook my head. I don't know yet. She nodded again, was silent for a moment, and then she began to examine me. I have something to discuss with you, she said, and my heart tightened. She watched me, her gaze incredibly complex. I have made up my mind. This child of yours, whether a boy or a girl, once born, will be brought into the palace. I shall raise it myself. I was stunned. Brought into the palace to be raised by her. Your Majesty, I said, I don't quite understand. What is there not to understand? She interrupted, I am doing you a favor. If your child is raised by me, they will be as good as a prince. When they grow up, their future will be limitless. I knelt down, my mind racing frantically. She wanted to take my child away. Your Majesty, I said, I am grateful for your favor. But this child is the heir's own flesh and blood, the sole descendant of the prince's estate. He must stay to inherit the title. The Empress Dowager's expression darkened. Are you refusing me? I kept my head low, not daring to look at her. Your Majesty, I said, I would not dare to refuse. But this child truly cannot go to the palace. She scoffed, cannot go to the palace. Do you think I am asking for your opinion? My heart sank to the bottom of the pit. She continued, I am telling you, this is not up to you. Once the child is born, I will send people to collect it. If you dare to stop them. She paused, her eyes chilling. I have countless ways to ensure you never see this child again. My hands and feet turned ice cold. What did she mean by that? To kill my child? Or to kill me? I don't know, but I know she means what she says. She can do it. I knelt on the floor, shaking all over. She looked at me and suddenly smiled again. Fine, she said, get up. Don't frighten the child in your womb. I stood up, my legs trembling. She waved her hand. You may go. Remember my words. I don't remember how I walked out of the Palace of Longevity, only that my mind was a complete blank. Back at the estate, I buried my face in the heir's embrace. He held me and asked, what is wrong? What did the Empress Dowager say? I told him everything. His expression shifted. She wants to take our child. His voice sounded strained. I nodded, tears streaming down. He held me, silent for a long time. Then he spoke. A'Gui, he said, rest assured, no one will take this child from us. I looked up at him. His eyes were bright and resolute, I promise. He said it, but I didn't know how he could ensure it. The Empress Dowager is the Emperor's birth mother, the most powerful woman in the realm. Who would dare disobey her? No matter how capable the heir is, he is merely a third-rank official. Could he possibly defy the Empress Dowager? I didn't know, but I knew that from that day on, he began to busy himself, leaving early and returning late every day. Sometimes he wouldn't return for days on end. I didn't know what he was doing, but I knew he was looking for a way. He was looking for a way to protect our child. By my 8th month of pregnancy, my belly was already quite large. That evening, the heir returned very late. When he entered, his expression was grave. I lay on the bed and watched him. He walked over and sat down beside me. A'Gui, he said, I have something to tell you. My heart tightened. He held my hand and said, I have found a way. I was stunned. He said, I have found a way. So the Empress Dowager cannot take our child. I asked, what way? He was silent for a moment and said, I petitioned the Emperor to grant you the title of noble lady. I was stunned. A noble lady? What was that? He explained, a noble lady is a wife of rank. Once you have a rank, you become the family of an imperial official, protected by the imperial court. No matter how powerful the Empress Dowager is, she cannot dispose of a lady of rank as she pleases. If she dares to take your child, it would be an act against the imperial court. I understood. Yet, I still didn't understand. Will the emperor agree? I asked. He smiled. The emperor has already agreed. I was stunned. He continued. The emperor said your pregnancy is a merit, and you have found favor with the empress. The recommendation was made, and it was only right. My eyes stung. Heir, I said. How many times did you run back and forth for this? He shook his head. Without answering, but I knew. It must have been many. He held my hand and said, A'Gui, from this day on, you are a lady of rank. No one will be able to bully you. I looked at him, tears streaming down my face. This man has done so much for me and for our child. What did I do to deserve such a husband? He reached out to wipe away my tears. Don't cry, he said. It is not good for your eyes. I nodded, holding back the tears. He pulled me into his embrace, resting his chin on the top of my head. A'Gui, he said. It won't be long now. Once the baby is born, the three of us will live a good life. I leaned against him, closing my eyes. Living a good life as a family of three. How wonderful. But I didn't know what this family of three would become. Half a month later, I gave birth to a son. The pain of childbirth. I still break into a cold sweat just thinking about it. The pain lasted from morning until night, a full day and a night. The midwife said that is how birth is, telling me to endure it. I gritted my teeth, clutching the bed sheets, trembling all over from the pain. The young lord was waiting outside, not leaving even for a step. I could hear his footsteps, pacing back and forth. Later, the midwife remarked that the young lord had worn down the threshold, but I had no heart to smile. It hurt. It hurt so much. It hurt enough to make me want to die. But every time the pain became unbearable, I would rub my belly. The baby was moving inside. He was kicking me. He was telling me, Mother, I'm right here. Hang in there a little longer. So I gritted my teeth and endured it. Finally, at twilight, the baby is here. A cry rang out, echoing through the entire courtyard. I felt my whole body go limp, collapsing onto the bed. The midwife held the baby up to show me. Congratulations, my lady. It's a little prince. I looked at him, so tiny and wrinkled. His eyes hadn't opened yet, but I knew he was my child and his child. When the heir rushed in, I was holding the baby. He saw me, and he saw the baby. His eyes turned red. He walked over and knelt by my bedside. He looked at the baby, and then at me. His lips trembled, unable to speak for a long time. I smiled. What is it? Are you stunned with joy? He nodded. Then he reached out to take the baby. He held the baby, clumsily, as if cradling a priceless treasure. A'Gui, thank you. I shook my head. He bowed his head and kissed the baby's forehead. Then he looked up at me. A'Gui, we have a son. I nodded. His eyes were red. My eyes were red too. The room was very quiet, filled only by the sound of the baby's cries. But that cry was the most beautiful sound we had ever heard. The news of the baby's birth soon spread throughout the Marquis Mansion. The dowager was the first to arrive. He held the baby, tears of joy streaming down his face. He stroked the baby's cheek. Good child. Good child. The Marchioness arrived as well. She stood by the bed, looking at me. Her gaze was extremely complex. After quite some time, she spoke. A'Gui, you have suffered. I was taken aback. This was the first time she had ever said such a thing to me. Thank you, madam. She stood by the bed for a moment longer, then turned and left. The elder held the child, chuckling as he said, this child looks just like a yan. Look at these brows and eyes. This nose, they're like they were cast from the same mold. I looked at the child, then at the heir. He really did look quite like him. The elder stayed for a while longer, and then left as well. The room was left with just the three of us. The heir held the baby, unable to bear letting go. I looked at the father and son, my heart feeling warm. A'Gui, what name should we give him? I thought for a moment, and said, you decide. He thought it over, and said, how about Wang Zheng? The son of unwavering iron-like strength. I asked, what does that mean? I hope he grows up to be a strong, upright man. I nodded. That's good. He lifted the child up and said to him, Wang Zheng, from today on, your name is Wang Zheng. The child closed his eyes and let out a yawn. We both laughed, but the good times didn't last long. On the third day after the child's birth, people came from the palace. It was the Empress Dowager's people. When that nurse entered the room, I was nursing the child. She stood at the door, wearing a very pleasant smile. She said, Princess Consort, I serve by the Empress Dowager's command to take the young master to the palace. My heart sank. So soon, he arrived so soon. I held the baby and didn't move. Nanny, the child is still so young. He cannot be without his mother. Let's wait until he is a bit older. The nanny's smile faded. Princess Consort, these are the Empress Dowager's orders. Do you dare to defy them? I looked at her, a fire burning in my heart. I said, Nanny, I am not defying them. I am only saying the child is too young. A'Gui, he cannot be taken from his mother so soon. She sneered. Wang Zhen, the princess consort, is being stubborn. Do not forget your station. The Empress Dowager wanting this child is an honor to you. Do not be ungrateful. I held the child tighter and said nothing. She took a step forward. Give the child to me. I shrank back. She took another step forward. Just then, the door suddenly opened. The Prince Consort walked in. He saw the nanny and his expression darkened. He asked, "Why are you here?" The nanny saw him and her smile spread across her face again. She said, "Your Highness, this servant acts on the Empress Dowager's orders to take the young master to the palace." The Prince Consort sneered. The Empress Dowager's orders. How is it that I did not know of this? The nanny froze. The Prince Consort pulled a bright yellow scroll from his robes. He unfolded it. It was an imperial decree. The emperor has just issued a decree granting Wang Zhen the title of heir to the Marquisate of Yongyi. If the Empress Dowager wishes to raise him, she must first ask if the emperor agrees. The nanny's face changed. The emperor has spoken. Wang Zheng is the only heir of the Marquisate of Yongyi and must remain at the estate to inherit the title. No one is permitted to move him. He paused, looked at the nanny, and said word for word, "No one," including the Empress Dowager. The nanny's face drained of color. She opened her mouth, trying to say something, but swallowed the words back. Finally, she offered a bow, turned around, and left. After she had gone, I held the baby and looked at the prince. Did the emperor truly issue a decree? He did, he smiled. Truly. He walked over and sat down beside me. I had long anticipated that the Empress Dowager would not let this go easily. So, as soon as the child was born, I went to the palace to request this decree. I looked at him, my eyes stinging with tears. How could this man be so capable? He reached out and pulled both me and the baby into his arms. "A'Gui, I told you, no one will be able to take this child away." I leaned into his embrace and nodded. From that day on, I knew I had married the right man. From that day on, I knew my child and I had a pillar of support. On the day of the child's 1-month milestone, the Marquis's estate hosted a grand feast. Many guests arrived, the prince's colleagues, relatives of the Marquis's house, and the noblewomen and ladies from various households. The matriarch held the baby, smiling from ear to ear. The Marchioness came as well. This time, she held the baby and smiled too. The empress sent someone with a congratulatory gift. It was a longevity lock, said to have been chosen by her personally. The Empress Dowager also sent a congratulatory gift, a pair of golden bracelets, calling it a welcoming gift for the child. I didn't overthink what she might mean by it. In any case, the child is by my side, and no one can take him away. At the banquet, the prince stayed by my side the whole time. He placed food in my bowl, poured my tea, and took care of me with the utmost attention. The young master really dotes on his wife. He didn't take offense when he heard that. He just smiled at me as I watched him, and I felt a warmth in my heart. This man is mine. This child is ours. The days ahead will only get better. But I didn't know that even greater storms were yet to come. When the child was 3 months old, news came from the border. The northern enemies had invaded, and the frontier was in a state of emergency. His Majesty was furious and ordered troops to be sent out. When the young master returned from court, his face was very solemn. "What is it?" He looked at me, remained silent for a moment, and said, "His Majesty has ordered me to lead the campaign." My heart sank. Go on a campaign to fight a war. He took my hand and said, "A'Gui, I have to go." I looked into his eyes. There was worry in them, guilt, and also determination. I opened my mouth, wanting to ask if he could choose not to go, but I knew I couldn't. I couldn't. He is a subject of the realm. His Majesty ordered him to go, and he must go. I took a deep breath and held back my tears. "When do you leave?" "In 3 days. 3 days is fine." He looked at me, his eyes reddening. "A'Gui, I have failed you. Go and do what you must do. The child and I will wait for your return." He pulled me into his arms, holding me so tightly. I nodded. 3 days later, he left. I stood at the doorway, watching his back disappear into the distance. I held the child in my arms. The child was asleep. "You know nothing of this. Zheng, your father has gone to fight the wicked. Once he returns, our little family will have a good life together." The child stirred his lips, as if he were smiling. I smiled too, yet my heart felt hollow. With him gone, what am I to do? I remembered his words, "Wait for me." "Very well, I will wait for you. 1 year, 2 years. 3 years, I will wait." But I did not know that this wait would last 5 years. 5 years. 5 years of days. They weren't exactly long, nor were they exactly short. The child, once an infant in swaddling clothes, grew into a boy who could run and play, with features growing more like his father's every day. Every time I saw him, my heart would give a sharp tug. In those 5 years, I received few letters from him, only 7 in total. The first said he had reached the frontier, that all was well, and told me not to worry. The second said they had won a great battle, and the emperor had bestowed a reward. The third said the northern DI had returned, and things were getting desperate, so he might not be able to write for a long time. Then came a full year of silence. When the fourth letter arrived, I nearly thought he had died. The note was brief, just a few words. I am still alive. Wait for me. I wept over that letter for an entire night. The fifth, sixth, and seventh letters each was very brief, and each one said, wait for me. I waited, but all I received in return were rumors. Some said the young lord had fallen in battle. Some said he had been taken prisoner. Others said he had married a northern Dai princess and would never return. I didn't know who to believe, but I knew he was still alive, because every year on my birthday, some unknown would deliver a hair ornament. It is jade carved with plum blossoms. It is exactly the same as the one he once took from the storage room to show me. Nobody knew who sent them, but I knew it was him. He was still alive. He was still thinking of me. On my birthday that 5th year, the hairpin didn't arrive. I waited for a day and a night. There was nothing. My heart sank to the very bottom. Something happened to him. Something must have happened. I held our child and couldn't sleep for nights on end. The matriarch comforted me, saying nothing would go wrong. The Marquis came over too. She held my hands, but said nothing at all, just her eyes turning red. I knew they were afraid as well. They were also afraid he wouldn't return, but they dared not say it. A month later, news came. The northern DI had retreated. The grand army was returning in triumph. I stood at the city gate, waiting from morning until dusk. Crowds passed by, wave after wave, but he wasn't among them. I comforted myself. Maybe he is behind them. The sky was turning dark, and I was still standing there. My child pulled my hand and asked, "Mother, where is father?" I said, "Soon, he'll be here soon. Just wait a little longer." But I was panicking inside. Just then, Simona shouted, "They're here! They're here!" I looked up and saw a troop of soldiers approaching slowly. Leading them was a general, riding a tall steed, looking imposing and majestic, but it wasn't him. My heart sank. Right at that moment, that general pulled on his reins, looked at me, jumped off his horse, and walked toward me. He walked up to me and took off his helmet. I was stunned. It was him. It was him. 5 years had passed, and he had changed so much. He was darker and thinner, with a new scar on his face, but those eyes were still the ones I knew so well. He stood before me, looking at me with such complex emotions. He spoke, his voice raspy. "A'Gui, I'm home." I opened my mouth, trying to say something, but before the words could come out, the tears began to fall. He reached out and pulled me into his arms. "Don't cry. I'm home." I buried my face in his chest, sobbing uncontrollably. 5 years. 5 long years. And he had finally returned. Our child stood by my side, looking up at him. He lowered his head and looked at the child. "Jen? Heir?" The child nodded. He squatted down, eye level with the child, and said, "I am your father. I'm home." The child looked at him and suddenly reached out a small hand, touching the scar on his face. "Does it hurt?" He froze for a moment, then smiled. "It doesn't hurt. Seeing you, it doesn't hurt anymore." That night, our family of 3 was finally reunited. The night deepened and the child fell asleep. Shizi lay on the daybed and I lay on the bed. With 5 years of time between us, neither of us could fall asleep. He suddenly spoke, "A'Gui, you've suffered these past 5 years." I shook my head. "I haven't suffered. Waiting for you wasn't suffering." He was silent for a moment, then said, "I didn't think I'd make it back." My heart tightened. Once I was surrounded for 7 days and nights, without food or supplies, without any reinforcements. I thought I was going to die. I asked, "What happened then?" "Then I thought of you, thought of Jung." I told myself I couldn't die. If I died, what would become of you? My eyes stung with tears. He continued, "So I led my brothers, and we literally hacked a path through the blood." Listening to him, my heart felt both aching and warm. How much he must have suffered, I didn't know, but I knew he had come back. For me, for our child, I'm back, A'Gui. From now on, I will never leave again. I nodded. He paused for a moment and said, "There is one more thing I must tell you." My heart tightened. He was silent for a while, then said, "The scar on my face wasn't from an enemy's blade." I froze. Someone tried to kill me. My head buzzed. "There is a traitor in my ranks." I sat up to look at him. He sat up and looked at me too. "Someone who wants my life. This person is here in the capital, right here among us." My hands and feet turned cold. He said, "I came back just to catch this person." I asked, "Who is it?" He shook his head. "I don't know yet." But soon he looked at me, his gaze deep and piercing. "Things might happen in the days to come. Don't be afraid, I am here." I nodded, but my mind was in complete chaos. Someone wants to kill him. This person is in the capital, right here among us. Who? I thought of all that had happened over the years, recalled the threats from the Empress Dowager, thinking of the frame-up by Liu Rulin, thinking of the coldness from the Marchioness. Could it be them, or someone else entirely? I do not know, but I do know this. The storm is coming again. Early the next morning, messengers arrived from the palace. The emperor summoned the heir. The heir changed into his court robes and went into the palace. I sat at home, feeling anxious and uneasy. An hour later, he returned. His expression was grim. What happened? I asked. He looked at me, remained silent for a moment, and said, "The emperor says, although the northern Di have retreated, their remnants are not yet purged. He wants me to go back once more." I froze. Go back? Didn't you say you wouldn't leave again? He continued. I refused. My heart tightened as I asked, did the emperor agree? No, the emperor was furious. He said I was disobeying an imperial decree, and that he would punish me for it. My face went pale. He looked at me and smiled. What is there to fear? At worst, I'll be demoted. Demoted is fine. I'm not going in any case. I opened my mouth, not knowing what to say. A'Gui, I promised you that I would never leave again. I keep my word. I looked at him, my eyes stinging with tears. This man was willing to give up his rank for me. What have I done to deserve this? But he didn't know that even greater waves were yet to come. 3 days later, the emperor issued an edict. The heir has disobeyed an imperial order. The heir has defied the imperial decree, stripping him of his titles and official duties, and reducing him to a commoner. The entire marquise's residence was in an uproar. The matriarch fell ill from the shock. The marchioness cried until she was inconsolable. Yet, the heir acted as if nothing had happened. Every day he stayed home with me and our child. It is fine not to be an official anymore. From now on, I'll just stay here with you and our child and live a peaceful life. I looked at him, feeling both warmed and deeply saddened. But I knew this was far from over. Sure enough, a month later, someone arrived. It was someone from the Empress Dowager. The matron stood before me, her face twisted with malice. Consort to the heir, the Empress Dowager requests your presence. I went to the Empress Dowager's Shukang Palace. It was just as it had been before, majestic and suffocating. She sat in the seat of honor. Seeing me enter, she smiled. You're here. Sit. I sat down, my hands resting on my knees, waiting for her to speak. She watched me, a hint of amusement in her gaze. Lady Shen, do you know why a yen was stripped of his position? Because he defied the imperial decree. She laughed. Defied the decree? No, it is because of me. I froze. It was I who had the emperor send him to the frontier. If he refuses, I will make him lose his office. Why? She looked at me, her smile full of malice. Why? Because I do not like you. I was silent. She stood up and walked toward me. Lady Shen, do you know why I do not like you? I shook my head. She laughed, a trace of madness in her smile. Because my son does not listen to me. I was stunned. His son. The emperor favors the empress, not me. He listens to the empress, not me. He makes the son born of the empress the crown prince, not the prince I favor. I hate him. I hate the Empress, and I hate all of you. I looked at him, a chilling sensation rising in my heart. A chilling sensation rising in my heart. I cannot touch the Emperor. I cannot touch the Empress. But can I not touch you? You, a lowly scullery maid. How dare you marry into the prince's estate? How dare you bear a son? How dare you make Yen protect you so fiercely? He grew more agitated as he spoke, his face twisting. His face twisting. I am simply going to make your life miserable. I will have Yen stripped of his title. I will give your whole family no peace. I stood up, looking at him, Empress Dowager. You hate the Emperor. You hate the Empress, so why take it out on us? He sneered, because you are easy targets. You are wrong. He was taken aback. You think we are easy targets, but you are wrong. The heir may have been stripped of his position, but he still has me, and our children, and a home, and you? What do you have? His expression changed. You have hatred, jealousy, and madness. You sit in that position, but you have nothing. You have been lonely your entire life, yet you want everyone else to be lonely with you. You are truly pathetic. Her face flushed red. You dare speak to me like that? I looked at her, unwavering. Empress Dowager, I came here today. I have come here today to tell you one thing. She glared at me. Who you hate is your own business. But if you dare to touch my people again, I will not hold back anymore. What could you possibly do? I can make you regret this for the rest of your life. She was stunned. I turned and walked away. Stop. You come back here. I didn't look back. The moment I walked out of the Palace of Longevity, I suddenly wanted to laugh. She thought I was still that same lowly maid who could be bullied by anyone. But she was wrong. 5 years, I have waited 5 years. And I have thought for 5 years. I have finally realized I can never be bullied like that again. I have a child, a family, and people I must protect. Whoever tries to harm them, I will fight to the death, be it the Empress Dowager or the heavens themselves. It makes no difference. Upon returning to the manor, the prince was in the courtyard playing with our child. Seeing me return, he walked over to greet me. "Is everything all right?" I shook my head. He looked at me, a trace of worry in his eyes. "What did she say?" "Nothing, just some senseless rambling." "Miss Shen," he frowned. "Prince, let us live a peaceful life from now on. No matter who comes, no matter what happens, the three of us will always be together." He looked at me and smiled. Agreed. That evening, the three of us sat in the courtyard watching the stars. The child leaned against his chest, pointing to the stars and asking, "Father, which one is the brightest?" "That is the North Star. It stays there to guide those who have lost their way." The child asked, "Will it ever leave?" He nodded. "No, it will always be there, waiting for you to come home." The child smiled and fell asleep against his chest. He held the child, and I leaned against his shoulder. The night breeze blew by, carrying a hint of chill, yet my heart was filled with warmth. I know there will be more storms ahead, but I am no longer afraid. With him here, and the child here, I fear nothing at all. A month later, the emperor issued an imperial decree, restoring the heir's official position. It is said that the empress spoke on our behalf before the emperor. It is said that the Empress Dowager is ill, very ill, and no longer has the strength to cause trouble. When I went to the Cunning Palace to express my gratitude, the Empress took my hand and spoke to me at length. "Lady Shen, do you know why I helped you?" I shook my head and she smiled, a smile that held a trace of bitterness. "Because when I look at you, I see my own self from back then. When I first entered the palace, I was bullied by others too, but I endured it. And you endured it as well. That means we are the same kind of person." I looked at her, feeling a surge of warmth in my heart. "Come to the palace to visit often, and keep me company." I nodded. Upon leaving the Cunning Palace, the sunlight was just right. I stood at the palace gates, gazing at the clouds on the horizon, suddenly remembering that year in the back garden of the Marquis estate. The matriarch asked me, "Shen A'Gui, are you willing to marry my grandson?" Back then, I thought a stroke of heavenly luck had struck me. Now I know. That wasn't just luck. It was destiny. It was him. It was me. It was our child. It was the destiny of our family of 3. I lowered my head, smiled, and then I headed home. Simone is waiting for me there.